Chapter 285 Life Seizing Immortal. Calming the Sea's Fury Name. Guin, Lifespan. 195/127088862. Physique. Primordial Karmic Body. Cultivation Level. Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm. 9 layers. Under the tree, Guin lay on his back, resting. He called up his attribute panel to check, and, as he looked at his lifespan, a smile appeared on his lips. It had been 21 years since his last breakthrough, and had accumulated over 12 million years of lifespan so quickly. Guin was very satisfied, proving he hadn't slackened. As long as he maintained this pace, a billion-year lifespan wouldn't be far off. After looking, Guin sent his divine sense toward the sea-breaking rift. Not long ago, Zhang had become an apprentice to the master of divine exotic realm. Guin could feel the goodwill released by the master of divine exotic realm, and he wasn't just paying lip service, had already started teaching Zhang earnestly and hadn't left the cave where Zhang resided. From this matter, it was clear that the master of divine exotic realm was quite urgent, indicating that the catastrophe mentioned by stealing the 5 elements was approaching. Guin wasn't in a hurry. The master of divine exotic realm surely had other powers. Otherwise, how would he dare to create such a rift in the sea? Let them fight it out first. Once it involved Zhang he would then consider intervening. Anyway, Guin wouldn't directly involve himself in the strife unless he was certain of his ability to solve the root of the problem. Zhang seemed to be in a good state, so Guin could rest assured. Everything's good. Everyone is busy. Being busy is a good thing. Guin scanned all those he had good relations with using his divine sense, and seeing that everyone was well, he smiled. He sat up, stretched lazily, and then got up to leave. Disciples he encountered along the way greeted him, and he nodded back with a smile, his attitude gentle and devoid of airs. All the way to the pavilion, he saw Xianxia conversing with the Blood Prison Great Saint about issues in physical cultivation. The Blood Prison Great Saint was also a physique cultivator. Otherwise, he wouldn't have obtained divine beast true blood. Seeing Guin approaching, Xianxia hurriedly stood up to greet him. Guin thought for a moment and said, "Rest well. In a while, they'll take you to spar in a combat to test your real strength." Upon hearing this, Xianxia's eyes lit up. Normally, he could only spar with Li Lingtian, which was quite boring. Hearing that he could actually fight a real battle, how could he not be excited? Without waiting for a response, Guin stepped upstairs. In the distance, stealing the 5 elements, who was playing Go with someone, was observing Xianxia thoughtfully. He could see that Xianxia possessed some type of ancient treasure body, which made him more curious about Guin. No wonder this person could establish a close relationship with the reincarnation of the Reincarnation Path Emperor. His origins must be extraordinary. He didn't intend to investigate Guin, but planned to form a good relationship with Xianxia later. No matter what, as long as Xianxia lived to 1,000 years, he would surely become a renowned figure, and befriending such an existence was naturally a good thing. Stealing the 5 elements, started contemplating what spells and divine skills to teach Xianxia. Guin didn't mind him guiding other disciples in cultivation, so he certainly wouldn't stop him from teaching Xianxia. That evening, stealing the 5 elements found Xianxia. "Little brother, I've observed you for some time and feel that your talent and comprehension are exceptional. I have a hand technique set. Would you like to learn it?" Stealing the 5 elements, asked with a smile. Xianxia knew he was a great cultivator. After all, he could win against the 9-finger divine lord in Go. "Thank you for your kindness, senior, but there's no need." Xianxia clasped his fists and refused. Stealing the 5 elements was slightly taken aback and asked, "Do you think I'm not strong enough?" Xianxia shook his head and said, "To be honest, I'm not interested in hand techniques, as the spells and divine skills related to the body are not as powerful as enhancing physical strength." Stealing the 5 elements became interested and curiously asked, "Then what do you want to learn?" Seeing his persistence, Xianxia asked, "Senior, have you ever read Investiture of the Gods or Journey to the West?" Stealing the 5 elements nodded and said, "Of course I've read them. You call yourself Xianxia. Could it be that you want to become an existence like him? But that's just fictional writing, and the cultivation techniques and divine skills in the books don't actually exist. Upon hearing this, Yang Jian could only shake his head and turn to leave. Wait, how about I teach you a spear technique? This is the most powerful long weapon technique I hold. Once mastered, it can dominate the world, being unmatched, suiting your physique well. Stealing the 5 elements hurriedly called out to Yang Jian. Yang Jian stopped, looking at him, his eyes slightly expectant. Stealing the 5 elements smiled and said, "This spear technique is called the Heaven-Extinguishing, Tao-Annihilating 36 Spear Techniques. It's very difficult to cultivate, and so far, no one has inherited it in the current age." Yang Jian, upon hearing this, said, "Is that so? I must try it." "Thank you, senior." "Find a deserted place to practice, then." "All right." The two headed deeper into Medicine Valley, followed by the Blood Prison Great Saint, who was intrigued and wanted to watch. Stealing the 5 elements didn't chase him away because he believed it was impossible for the Great Saint to master it. Yang Jian did possess an ancient treasure body, a physique rare in this era. Inside the pavilion, Guan also noticed this scene, but he didn't pay much attention, as stealing the 5 elements shouldn't act recklessly, and if he dared, it would be courting death. Moreover, he was curious about the heaven-extinguishing, Tao-Annihilating 36 spear techniques, wondering if they were indeed that powerful. A night passed. As dawn broke, the disciples gathered to practice. Guan saw Yang Jian approaching quickly, with stealing the 5 elements following behind. Stealing the 5 elements appeared dazed, lacking his usual composure, as if he had been frightened. Guan found it amusing. Stealing the 5 elements was likely startled by Yang Jian's comprehension and physique. After just one night, Yang Jian had preliminarily mastered the heaven-extinguishing, Tao-Annihilating 36 spear techniques. Although he hadn't yet unleashed its true power, it was enough to amaze stealing the 5 elements. He suspected that Yang Jian's physique was among the strongest of ancient treasure bodies. Unfortunately, Impermanence Tian had been obliterated. Otherwise, he could have asked him, as he was the most knowledgeable about ancient treasure bodies. "What did you do?" Liling Tian looked at Yang Jian, surprised. Yang Jian's breath was chaotic, indicating he hadn't rested the previous night. Yang Jian dismissively said, "Just cultivating, don't ask more." Liling Tian cast a glance at stealing the 5 elements in the distance and understood. After finishing their exercises, Liling Tian found stealing the 5 elements to inquire if he had taught Yang Jian any Taoist sorcery, to which stealing the 5 elements nodded without concealment. "Can you teach me as well? My talent isn't bad either." Liling Tian promptly asked. Stealing the 5 elements appraised him and said, "Your aptitude is indeed good, but not enough to make me act. Improve your cultivation first, and perhaps one day, when you look pleasing to my eyes, it'll teach you." Pleasing? Liling Tian was infuriated. All his life, had been cherished by others and had never been rejected. Even the Third Medicine Valley, Guan hadn't refused him. Liling Tian, teeth clenched, stormed off. Stealing the 5 elements wasn't bothered. Li Lingshan's predicaments weren't complicated, and the forces behind him didn't threaten stealing the 5 elements. He even anticipated trouble from Li Lingshan's backers, something to spice up his life. Just as he was about to play Go, Xianxia intercepted him. "Umitba, benefactor, care to chat?" Xianxia sternly asked, stealing the 5 elements. Stealing the 5 elements smiled and nodded, and the two left the Third Medicine Valley. With autumn's arrival, the Third Medicine Valley gradually took on hues of withering yellow, and disciples could be seen everywhere clearing fallen leaves. Inside the pavilion, Shenzhen was enthusiastically discussing her new masterpiece with Guangu and was uninterested in her journey to the south, and his divine sense was gazing towards the ocean. Above the sea-breaking rift was a shocking battle where one person fought against 3 divine exotic ghost kings, and that person even had the upper hand. Heaven and earth flying immortal. The divine exotic ghost kings were already at the 9th level of heaven and earth flying immortal, Yet there was another heaven and earth flying immortal who could single-handedly overpower them. How could this not pique Gu An's curiosity? "Are you listening?" Xianxia asked, dissatisfied. Guan smiled. "Of course I'm listening, but I'm more curious about your cultivation than your book." Xianxia, Nascent Soul Realm, 7th Layer 231/880/4400. Xianxia's maximum lifespan had actually increased. This surprised Guan. Previously, Xianxia's maximum lifespan was only over 2,500 years. Pity his junior sister and brother, diligently cultivating, yet unable to find a path enlightenment opportunity. Xianxia, who spent her days writing and painting, lazy in cultivation, just saw her maximum lifespan increase. How could he reason with this? Perhaps writing and painting were another path of cultivation. Xianxia coughed lightly, her face slightly uneasy, and she replied, "I'm doing okay. I am working hard." Guan didn't have the heart to expose her. Every time he checked on her with his divine sense over the years, she was either reading, writing, painting, or playing music, living alone in her cave, seemingly never getting tired. Now, it seemed that her actions were not without meaning. Judging from Xianxia's expression, she seemed unaware of her increased talent and comprehension. Guan didn't mention it. After all, she was still young and didn't need to rush in cultivation. If he said something, she might never find that same feeling again. "What about you? Why does it seem like your cultivation isn't progressing?" Xianxia asked, raising an eyebrow. Upon hearing this, Gu An's face darkened immediately, and he sighed. Xianxia frowned. "What's wrong? Is something troubling you?" "Nothing. I just increasingly feel heavenly destiny. Even with medicinal herbs for alchemy, I find breaking through difficult. You don't understand this feeling. I see no future in immortal cultivation. Perhaps this is already my future," Guan sighed. Hearing him, Xianxia opened her mouth, wanting to console him, but words failed her. Talent is reality. Gu An's friend Wuxia had already soared, and as for Leah, had already become the face of the supreme sect. Guan forced a smile. "Ms. Shun, my life is short, but yours is different." As he was about to continue, suddenly, a vast oppressive force engulfed the heavens and earth, interrupting him. Immediately, a dominantly unrivaled voice resounded throughout the world. "I'm the life-seizing immortal of the great cold demon sect. Today, I plant a tower at the sea-breaking rift. Within 100 years, if no one can defeat me, I will annihilate all living beings who have heard my words to quell the ocean's fury." The great cold demon sect. Guan had heard of this sect, a demon path sect comparable to the Bittersea Buddhist sect. According to Wuxia, the great cold demon sect was also one of the few demon path sects recognized by the Holy Court. Though a demon sect, the places they massacred were all territories abandoned by the Holy Court. Could it be that their continent and the surrounding seas had already been abandoned by the Holy Court? Chapter 286. The background of connecting to heaven. Great cold demon sect? Life-seizing immortal? Where do they come from? Xianxia frowned, muttering under his breath, his eyes revealing a hint of unease. Guan continued, "Not sure, but judging from the voice, it's likely a massive creature from the sea." "Ah, we had peace for just a few decades, and now another significant event is happening." Xianxia consoled, "Don't worry too much. The broken sea rift is so far from us. People of talent arise continuously in this world, and good will always overcome evil. We will get through this." Guan nodded, but his thoughts were quite the opposite. The power behind the great cold demon sect had already reached the heavens. As Wuxia would say, since ancient times, the great cold demon sect and other demon sects with significant chi fortune have been acting as the blade of the Holy Court. There are always some matters that the Holy Court can't handle directly. Of course, the Holy Court isn't dark. They simply view things from the perspective of the entire universe, and often encounter situations where they must sacrifice some beings or have no choice but to annihilate an area filled with living beings. If the Holy Court has truly abandoned this place, what could be the reason? It surely couldn't be because of the divine exotic realm, right? The divine exotic realm has nothing to do with them. They could separate it out entirely. Gulen suspected there was a deeper reason he was unaware of. His divine sense probed, and the life-seizing immortal was not the heaven and earth flying immortal who fought alone against the three divine exotic ghost kings. Instead, it was a carefree, primordial immortal. His arrival had interrupted that great battle. Gulen watched as the life-seizing immortal placed a treasure pagoda at the edge of the broken sea rift. It grew taller and taller, reaching through the clouds, no less than 100,000 feet tall, quite majestic. The life-seizing immortal then flew into the pagoda. The three divine exotic ghost kings fled into the broken sea rift, followed by the heaven and earth flying immortal, clearly aligned with the life-seizing immortal. Gulen was curious to see if any other carefree primordial immortals would take action within the next 100 years. He continued discussing the affairs of the world with Xianxia. They were both minor cultivators in the world of immortal cultivation. When talking about the happenings in the world, they mostly expressed envy. Not long into their conversation, Xianxia excused himself. Gulen also got up and went downstairs, ready to discuss the great cold demon sect with the disciples and cultivators in the valley. The shout of the life-seizing immortal had caused an uproar across the world. Wherever there were gathered beings, this matter was being discussed. When Gulen arrived at the chess area, Nine-Finger Divine Lord and Stealing the Five Elements were discussing the great cold demon sect with great cultivators from the supreme sect. Other disciples surrounded them, listening intently with tension. Xianxia sat among the crowd as well. Although he rarely spoke, he listened attentively. After Xianxia had spoken with Stealing the Five Elements, the two did not come into conflict. It seemed they had reached some agreement. At the time, Gulen hadn't listened because, in his eyes, these two couldn't stir up any trouble. The great cold demon sect has existed for 1,000,000 years. That life-seizing immortal is also a person from the legends. I didn't expect him to still be alive. Now we're really in trouble, lamented Nine-Finger Divine Lord. He didn't mention the Holy Court, clearly very wary of it. 1,000,000 years. The disciples listened with twitching eyelids, unable to fathom how long 1,000,000 years was. The younger ones felt a longing. They hadn't completely resigned themselves to fate yet. They always felt that there was hope. The Third Medicine Valley was only the first stage of their entry into the world of immortal cultivation. The world of immortal cultivation is full of stories where those with ordinary talent obtain great opportunities to change their destinies against all odds. Gulen also listened intently, as if he were listening to a story, occasionally exclaiming with the surrounding disciples or revealing an incredulous expression. Meanwhile, inside the main city of sect, in a mansion, Lu Lingjun visited the courtyard of the Holy Mother of Western Spirit, where teacher and student sat opposite each other. The Great Cold Demon Sect is comparable to the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect. In terms of heritage, they're even stronger. If the Great Cold Demon Sect stands behind the Broken Sea Rift, we are in trouble. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit sighed, bringing up the existence of the Holy Court. This was the first time Lu Lingjun had heard the name of the Holy Court, and she was shocked. How vast is this universe? The Holy Mother of Western Spirit also suspected that this sea area had been abandoned by the Holy Court. Otherwise, the people from the Great Cold Demon Sect wouldn't be so unrestrained, even giving out 100 years, clearly wanting large sects to evacuate promptly. Upon hearing this, Lu Lingjun couldn't help asking, 100 years? Only the immortal cultivation sects can evacuate, right? Will all the myriad living beings who stay behind really die? The Great Cold Demon Sect has slaughtered so many living beings. The continents and sea areas affected by the Broken Sea Rift added together only make up a small area of the great heaven and earth. To the Great Cold Demon Sect, it's nothing. The Holy Court won't care either. The fall of the beings in this area won't make waves in the entire world, the Holy Mother of Western Spirit said somberly. Lu Lingjun furrowed her brows. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit then said, I need to make a trip back to find out the real reason behind the actions of the Great Cold Demon Sect. Lu Lingju nodded, beginning to consider the worst-case scenario. She was an ascender, so escaping wasn't a problem for her. But, having been in the Supreme Sect for so long, she cared about too many people. Her concern was how to help those she had relationships with. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit began to muse about the complexity of the affairs of the world. Initially, she truly thought the divine exotic realm was harming one side. But now it seemed the emergence of the divine exotic realm wasn't simple. Undoubtedly, there was an unimaginably powerful existence struggling behind it. Dark clouds covered the sky, and a continuous drizzle fell onto Immortal Seeking Island. In a courtyard, Gu In, Yang Jian, and Hu Xiaojian sat together, with Guan listening to Hu Xiaojian detail the Great Cold Demon Sect. 3 days had passed since the life-seizing immortal shout. In those 3 days, various sects on the sea had publicly disclosed information about the Great Cold Demon Sect, with various pieces of news reaching the listeners on Immortal Seeking Island. Yang Jian listened intently, his expression constantly changing as Hu Xiaojian spoke of the Great Cold Demon Sect, which appeared to be the most formidable on the demon path, with countless demon immortals within, making it seem invincible. The true calamity had descended. After a long time, when Hu Xiaojian paused to sip his tea and moisten his throat, Guan asked, have you managed to find out anything about the Reincarnation Path Emperor? The Reincarnation Path Emperor, one of Ji Xiaoyu's past lives, was always remembered by Gu, and Hu Xiaojian shook his head, saying, I couldn't find anything. I even feel like this exalted figure doesn't exist. But since you mentioned him, he must indeed exist. It's just that my level is too low. At least within the Immortal Seeking Island, there's not a single clue. Gu didn't get angry. He gently moved on from the topic. Hu Xiaojian put down his teacup. His gaze shifted towards Guan, hesitating to speak. After hesitating for a moment, he stood up, walked to the side, then knelt down and began to kowtow to Guan. What are you doing? Guan asked with a frown. Hu Xiaojian looked up, pleading, I beg you, senior, to take me away. The Great Cold Demon Sect's power is vast. The upper echelons of Immortal Seeking Island are preparing to evacuate. I am only a nascent soul realm cultivator. Within 100 years, I absolutely cannot escape the range that the Great Cold Demon Sect wants to obliterate. Even if by chance I escape, who knows if I can survive elsewhere? Senior, you are a loose immortal. You come and go as you please. Can you take me with you? I will serve you like an ox or a horse. Yang Jian sat on the side, his feelings complex. This was a nascent soul realm cultivator. In the Supreme Sect, this was an existence looked up to by servant disciples. Yet he didn't even have the confidence to survive at sea. Guan pondered and then said, Don't be anxious. For now, stay peacefully at Immortal Seeking Island. If the sea powers truly cannot withstand the Great Cold Demon Sect, I will take you with me. Before that happens, help me keep an eye on the Sea Protection Mansion. If they truly intend to abandon Immortal Seeking Island, then I will come and take over. Hu Xiaojian was stunned, not expecting Gu, and to still be concerned about Immortal Seeking Island at this critical moment. Yang Jian glanced at his master. It seemed like his master had no fear of the Great Cold Demon Sect. His master referred to himself as a loose immortal. Could it be that loose immortal was not his realm, but just his identity? Hu Xiaojian wanted to persuade Guan, but feared offending him, so he could only agree. Guan noticed his concerns and reassured him, Don't underestimate this world. Otherwise, the divine, exotic, resentful ghosts in the sea-breaking rift would have already swept across the oceans, right? Hu Xiaojian felt persuaded by these words and promptly thanked Guan Gu and waved his hand, helping him up and invited him to sit and speak. Hu Xiaojian continued to talk about the Great Cold Demon Sect. He knew a lot about it, but nothing about the life-seizing immortal. Guan then began to think about how to control Immortal Seeking Island. Firstly, he must arrange someone to act as a puppet while he stayed hidden. Using the various channels of Immortal Seeking Island, he could collect more medicinal herbs and besides, it sounded like a fun endeavor. It felt like preparing to play a management game, which he was quite looking forward to. To suppress Immortal Seeking Island, he would need at least a Wandering Immortal. He had to think carefully about this candidate. Just like that, time swiftly passed, and the rain intensified. 2 ancient hours later, Guan left with Xianxia, returning to the forested mountains of the Supreme Sect. Xianxia was no longer experiencing the limitless freedom step for the first time, but as his cultivation level increased, he grew more awestruck of his master's divine skills. Master, is there really someone who can confront the great cold demon sect? Xianxia asked, his words still carrying a hint of cautiousness. He did not dare ask directly about his master's prowess, so he had to beat around the bush. While moving forward, Guan responded, "Who knows? At any rate, your master, I'm not sure." Just not sure? Xianxia was secretly alarmed. Just what was his master's background? Guan was unaware of Xianxia's thoughts. He had modestly underestimated himself, not expecting it would make Xianxia even more amazed. Listening to Xiaojian, the great cold demon sect had taken on an unimaginably fearsome and evil persona in Xianxia's mind, such an existence often being the ultimate antagonist in stories. Knowing that Guan was confident in confronting the great cold demon sect, how could he not be surprised? Jinner, cultivate diligently. Even if we survive this calamity, there will be no shortage of trials ahead. From ancient times until now, every great cultivator has persevered through countless hardships. The greater the crises, the more diligently one must cultivate, Guan said earnestly. Xianxia nodded, saying, "Disciple always keeps this in mind. I will strive to cultivate as diligently as you." How many years had it taken for his master to reach his current height? Xianxia thought to himself, guessing surely it took tens of thousands of years. No, perhaps his master had even existed longer than the great cold demon sect, merely frolicking in a mortal world. He believed his master wouldn't deceive him. His master surely had also endured countless hardships and diligently cultivated to achieve his current level of cultivation. Guan continued to instruct Xianxia, educating a disciple, after all, required occasionally teaching them, making it an enjoyable experience. Xianxia, unaware of his master's inner thoughts, could feel his master's earnest intentions. Chapter 287, The Longevity Pact. As the year ended, snowflakes danced in the air. Inside the attic, Guan was pouring tea for Yilan, who was recounting her experiences in the subsect. Having not seen each other for many years, Yilan now more than ever exhibited the demeanor of a great cultivator. Cultivators at the divinity transformation realm could become leaders everywhere on the continent, and naturally, her aura grew stronger with each passing day. This made Guan find her even more charming. Back then, she was always hanging around him, the little girl who always followed him around. Now, she had become an existence that stood above tens of thousands, which made him feel not only nostalgic, but also immensely proud. Her experiences in the subsect mainly involved power struggles and gaining profit. With LV Batian having paved the way, she always managed to secure victories in various conflicts. And overall, she had a smooth journey. After discussing her own experiences, she asked Guan how he had been over the years, growing various plants, playing chess, and occasionally teasing the disciples for fun. "I'm quite content," Guan said, looking at Yilan with a smile. Yilan raised her eyebrows and asked, "Who is the girl downstairs? You've been wanting to ask that, haven't you?" That's what Guan thought to himself, but he said aloud, "Her identity is not simple. I will only tell you, and you mustn't let it slip." The attic had a protective restriction, strong enough to ward off the probing of any cultivator below the divinity transformation realm. So Guan was not afraid of being overheard by Xiaoyu. Yilan nodded expressionlessly. Guan took a deep breath and said, "Her name is Xiaoyu. You understand, right?" Yilan frowned and asked, "Isn't Xiaoyu already deceased?" Xiaoyu had once been a renowned genius, famed for her beauty across the world. Her death had sparked much discussion within the Supreme Sect, and Yilan too had heard about it. She did die, but she is also reincarnated. Guan shared the information he got from stealing the 5 elements, his face full of emotion. Upon hearing this, Yilan too was taken aback. Such oddities existed in the world, and the background of Xiaoyu was far beyond her expectations, even shattering her previous perceptions. Guan cautiously said, "Junior sister, this matter must not be disclosed. Otherwise, it might bring us great trouble involving reincarnation, and the enemies we would attract are extremely formidable. Faced with such entities, the Supreme Sect would have to either submit or be annihilated." Yilan nodded, then exclaimed with emotion, "Honestly, I was just feeling jealous of her, but not anymore. The gap between her and us is too vast, not to mention whether she would take a fancy to you, senior brother. Even if she did, I think it would be a good thing. Haven't you always said that your talents are mediocre? And since your relationship with that senior has been severed, you must cherish her. Perhaps she could change your destiny." As she spoke, her expression grew very serious. Guan was moved by her attitude. Truth be told, due to his experiences in his previous life, Guan felt that it was impossible for someone to consider others completely selflessly. Even love started from individual needs. He had rejected Yilan many times, but she had remained consistent, and he didn't want her to suffer losses. Thus, he had always helped her. Of course, he was moved by this. At least Yilan had an irreplaceable position in his heart. But he hadn't expected Yilan to hope for his future to the extent of wanting him to cozy up to another woman. This silly girl. Guan glared at Yilan and said irritably, "Cherish what? She and I don't have that kind of relationship. At most, we are just Taoist friends, and in her heart, there isn't a place for romantic feelings. Only the immortal path." That was the truth. He could feel Xiaoyu's ambition. Whether in her past life or now, Xiaoyu was not a woman obsessed with romantic love. Otherwise, she wouldn't have chosen death to resist a marriage arranged by her family in her previous life. Yilan rolled her eyes at Guan and said, "Senior brother, a woman staying in your building must have a significant background. How could she not have feelings for you? Even if you can't really pursue her, establishing a better relationship with her would still be beneficial for you." Although she had reached the divinity transformation cultivation level, she still felt that her path to immortality had come to an end. At least she no longer dared to hope for longevity, but she hoped Guan could have that chance. The reason? She couldn't really say. She just hoped for Guan to have a better life, and she felt he deserved it. From a young age, she always believed that her senior brother was worthy of all the good fortune in the world. Even when Guan rejected her, she wasn't angry. She liked her senior brother. Why should he have to comply with her wishes? Forget it, senior brother. I rather prefer a peaceful life. If she wishes to stay in the Third Medicine Valley, I will not treat her badly, and if she wants to leave, I won't keep her. She and I are ultimately not people of the same world. We should not hinder each other's paths." Guan shook his head and said. This too was his heartfelt truth. His goal was longevity, not marriage and children. Yilan blinked, unsure whether to feel happy or to sigh. "Senior brother, if you don't achieve longevity in this lifetime, would you accept me?" Yilan asked. Guan thought for a moment, then said, "If neither you nor I achieve longevity, then let's just live out a mortal's life in the last 100 years. A mortal's life spans only a century, and before that, let both of us strive for the immortal path. Who knows what might be possible? Although I seek a stable life, I have not given up on cultivation." Yilan smiled upon hearing this, gazing at Guan, and said dreamily, "Senior brother, with you saying this, I suddenly feel like the life limit isn't so scary." Guan raised his hand to ruffle her hair, messing it up under her scolding gaze before he finally stopped. Later, Yilan brought up the Great Cold Demon Sect. She had also learned quite a lot about the Great Cold Demon Sect, which made her very anxious. She feared that the continent might not survive this calamity, so she had come back early to see Guan to avoid regrets. Of course, she still held hope that being Sword Venerable Fudao. This was also the reason why most disciples of the Supreme Sect hadn't panicked. Over the years, the protection of Sword Venerable Fudao gave them faith and confidence to fantasize about and tackle all adversities. As long as Sword Venerable Fudao didn't abandon them or be defeated, they would surely be able to overcome the calamity. In the end, Guan invited Yilan to stay, and naturally, she did not refuse. After night fell, Guan took Yilan around the valley and even took her to watch others play chess. He also called Yang Jian over and had Yang Jian pay respects to Yilan. Yang Jian's attitude was very respectful, sensing that his master treated Yilan differently. His master calling him over must have a profound meaning. Could she be not a martial aunt, but the mistress? Thinking this, Yang Jian also felt joyful, suddenly sensing that his master wasn't as unapproachable and even had a human side. That night, Yilan stayed at the Third Medicine Valley, occupying Gu In's room. While Guan read, she practiced qi absorption cultivation. By late night, when Yilan opened her eyes, she saw Guan still engrossed in his book, the candlelight illuminating his face, and a blissful smile appeared on her face. Actually, this was quite nice. Yilan watched Guan for a while before closing her eyes. As dawn neared, the situation changed. "Senior brother, you must be tired. Let me give you a shoulder rub." "Why would I be tired? You're the one who's been cultivating all this time." "It's fine. I'm at a higher cultivation level. I'm not tired." "Is this a shoulder rub?" "I'm just checking your body. Afraid you might have developed some problems from your usual routines." "Wait, don't touch any lower." "Senior brother, how could your junior sister harbor any inappropriate thoughts towards you? I have a unique sorcery that can nurture your chi blood." "That's not okay. Not there." At dawn, Guan descended the stairs with a complex expression, and Yilan followed behind, her face radiant with a brilliant smile. Xiaoyu emerged from the room, her gaze shifting toward the two, her brows slightly knitted. After descending, Guan introduced the two women to each other, but didn't talk much. Yilan then followed Guan to practice exercises. Xiaoyu stood still, watching. After a while, her brows relaxed. Yilan planned to leave after the spring festival. Guan would take her with him to the Outer Gate City and the Mystic Valley, but not to Tinya Valley or other places. She didn't ask much, thinking that it was good for her senior brother to have secrets, indicating that he still concealed his identity. Naturally, she hoped her senior brother would become even more formidable. Chapter 288. 9 Profound True Fire. Calamity from the sky. This year's spring festival felt warmer than in previous years for Guan, thanks to the company of Yilan. The day after the festival ended, Yilan left. She did not wish to become lost in the presence of her senior brother, as cultivating her immortal path was a major life event for her. At this stage, her main task was to diligently practice her cultivation. Despite the declarations of the life-seizing immortal from the great cold demon sect casting a shadow over the lands, it had not impacted the overall structure of the world. By the following year, the immortal cultivation world had returned to its former state, though various sects had begun dispatching more disciples to explore overseas. Years passed one after another, sunsets followed by moonrises. Third Medicine Valley saw disciples advancing each year, with new disciples joining, constantly increasing in number. This was because the Supreme Sect itself was growing stronger, which led to an increase in the number of servant disciples. These servant disciples needed positions to earn spirit stones. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. Guan stood by the window, using his divine sense to survey a distant great battle. A great cultivator had gone to challenge the life-seizing immortal, even a heaven and earth-flying immortal. Alas, he did not even get to see the face of the life-seizing immortal being suppressed by his disciple. This battle was watched by countless cultivators and demons. Not all beings wished to flee this region of the mortal world, especially sects that followed the righteous path, shouldering the responsibility to protect all living beings. Over the past decade, More than once had heaven and earth-flying immortals challenged the life-seizing immortal, each time without exception being overwhelmed by the life-seizing immortal's disciple. Advancing to the tower had become a mere wishful thinking. The name of life-seizing immortal's pagoda spread far and wide. Known as the soul-calming pagoda, it was also an immortal path's supreme treasure. Guan shook his head as he watched, the defeat of the heaven and earth flying immortal obvious, proving that he was not the savior of this region of the mortal world. He turned and went downstairs, feeling a presence entering the valley. It was the Holy Mother of Western Spirit from the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect. The Holy Mother had found Xianxia, taking him to a secluded corner to speak, for which Xianxia had even set up a restriction. Inside the Supreme Sect, no one's divine sense could penetrate the barrier created by Xianxin's restriction. Except for Guan, did you get that clear? Xianxia asked, referring to matters concerning the Great Cold Demon Sect. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit took a deep breath and said, "This matter involves a holy king from the Holy Court, and though he cannot represent the entire decision of the Holy Court, this holy king has far-reaching connections, and even the Buddhism sect does not wish to offend. After all, no one knows when Xingtian will emerge from seclusion." Holy King, Xianxia frowned and then asked, "What in this region of the mortal world could be of interest to a being like the Holy King?" The Holy Mother responded, "I am not entirely sure myself. I only found out that it has something to do with the reincarnation of a great power from the Holy Court. That great power might be a rival of the Holy King, reincarnated here in this region of the mortal world." Xianxin's frown deepened. Looking at him, the Holy Mother continued, "The situation has gone beyond redeeming. The Buddhism sect does not wish to risk involvement. Let's head back soon." Xianxia scoffed. The Buddhism sect doesn't want to risk involvement? What a joke! Whatever happened to universal salvation? The Holy Mother was taken aback by Xianxin's tone, clearly detecting the sarcasm in it. Something was off. Xianxia, who used to take pride in being part of the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect, had never spoken this way before. "You go back. I am staying at the Supreme Sect," Xianxia stated seriously. The Holy Mother wanted to persuade him otherwise, but Xianxia took his leave with determined steps. What has actually happened? The Holy Mother stared at Xianxin's departing figure, filled with confusion. Her cultivation level was lower than Xianxin's, and her status was not as prominent, so she couldn't forcefully take Xianxia back. Thus, she refrained from further persuasion and could only take the news back to the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect. Elsewhere, Guan, walking towards a certain garden area, was also pondering the intelligence brought by the Holy Mother of Western Spirit. Holy King, reincarnation of a great power. Upon hearing about the reincarnation of a great power, his first thought was Ji Xiaoyu. However, upon reflection, it might not be Ji Xiaoyu. Ji Xiaoyu had reincarnated countless times, and if it truly were the rival of that Holy King, why hadn't the Holy King acted sooner? Moreover, he was curious about which role the Master of Divine Exotic Realm played in this feud. Perhaps he needed to seek an opportunity to discuss this with the Master of Divine Exotic Realm. Inside a dimly lit chamber, Zhang Buku put down his great axe. The strength energy around him began to dissipate, and his constantly swirling white hair gradually settled. He exhaled deeply, eyeing the great axe in his hand, his brow slightly furrowed. At that moment, footsteps approached. Zhang Buku clenched the axe tightly, causing it to vanish as he turned to look toward the entrance of the cave. He saw the Master of Divine Exotic Realm approaching slowly, and perhaps it was Zhang Buku's illusion, but he felt the Master seemed weaker than before. "Master!" Zhang Buku raised his hand in greeting and spoke. Throughout these years, the Master of Divine Exotic Realm had been conscientious in teaching him. At least Zhang Buku believed the Master truly treated him like a direct disciple, not only instructing him in cultivation, but occasionally also bringing him heavenly materials and treasures to enhance his ghost body and resist the backlash of exotic forces. The Master of Divine Exotic Realm stopped before him, sizing him up and nodded slightly, saying, "Not bad. You are mastering the exotic powers." Zhang Buku couldn't help but ask, "Master, are you all right?" The master of divine exotic realm revealed a smile, though it was a chilling one, as he said, "Master is naturally fine, but there is something I need to ask of you, may I?" "What is it?" Zhang Buku did not agree immediately, but asked instead, his mind alert as he feared the master of divine exotic realm might be plotting against the mysterious being that had been helping him in secret. The master of divine exotic realm lifted his right hand, within which a golden flame appeared, the light brightening the chamber. Zhang Buku's expression shifted slightly as he stared at the golden flame, unable to look away. The master of divine exotic realm spoke. "This is the 9 profound, true fire, a flame of an extraordinary being. After inheriting it, you will possess a divine skill that will help you survive better. When you encounter the reincarnation of that being, the 9 profound, true fire will act uniquely, letting you know at that time." "Who is that being?" Zhang Buku couldn't help but ask. The master of divine exotic realm responded. "He is a being whose cultivation far surpasses mine, and his status in the mortal world is beyond your imagination. I am passing this flame to you, hoping that you will find him in the future and protect him as much as possible. He will be the chance for us to overturn our fate." Zhang Buku was stunned. The master of divine exotic realm looked at the flame in his hand, his gaze wandering, then said, "The truth is, my existence is also for dealing with this being. But now that my backing is prepared to forsake me, I have no choice but to turn against it." Zhang Buku frowned and asked, "Master, who is your backing?" The master of divine exotic realm sighed. "It is an existence that can manipulate beings at will, akin to an immortal god in the hearts of the masses. Not only me, but many forces serve him, including the continent you come from. The holy land of the 7-star spirit realm also serves him and helped me break the heaven and earth barriers, opening up the sea-breaking rift." The 7 stars spirit realm. Zhang Buku naturally knew of this power. He hadn't imagined that the long-destroyed 7-star spirit realm was still connected to the sea-breaking rift. "Well, I can't tell you too much, lest you invoke temporarily insurmountable karma. Just remember, when you encounter someone that causes the 9 profound true fire to act unusually, you must support him. He will be the greatest opportunity you will ever encounter, and the only hope for you to be free of exotic forces," the master of divine exotic realm said, squinting at Zhang Buku with a serious look. Zhang Buku frowned and asked, "And what about you, master?" The master of divine exotic realm placed his palm on Zhang Buku's chest, injecting the 9 profound true fire into his body. The true fire wafted, numerous sparks flashing across the master of divine exotic realm's face, making his expression look even more terrifying. He spoke in a sinister tone, "I have become a discarded piece, and fate has already presented itself before my eyes." Zhang Buku opened his mouth to say something, but the raging 9 profound true fire surged through his body, rendering him speechless. Soon, his consciousness drifted into confusion. In a grand hall, flickering with firelight, an old man in a black robe sat on a lotus pedestal, which was a black lotus swirling with dark red flames. He had a powerful presence, his unbound hair adding to his imposing aura. Looking up at the ceiling of the grand hall, one could see dark red flames churning like an inverted ocean, constantly surging. This was inside the soul calming pagoda, and this black-robed old man was the life-seizing immortal of the great cold demon sect. Suddenly, the life-seizing immortal spoke. "Disciple, put some pressure on them." His voice echoed within the hall, as if many people were shouting in unison. Soon a voice came from outside the hall. "Yes." Simultaneously, at the top of the soul calming pagoda, a white-robed Taoist who had been meditating slowly stood up, holding a horsetail whisk. He was tall and emaciated with white hair arranged under a Taoist hat. He looked down at the vast sea, his expression indifferent. The soul calming pagoda was located directly above the sea-breaking rift, a massive rift that stretched dozens of miles wide, with no visible ends. The white-robed Taoist looked into the distance, raised his left hand to his mouth, and began to chant softly. As he chanted, visible ripples spread out in the space around him. Seconds later, his right hand suddenly waved a whisk. With this motion, the seas on either side of the sea-breaking rift abruptly rose, forming towering waves with the potential to engulf the heavens. He waved the whisk again, and the terrifying waves on both sides swept uncontrollably toward the distance. After doing all of this, the white-robed Taoist paused, then looked up at the sky and waved his whisk toward the heavens 3 times. At dusk, Guan rode on the blood-prisoned Great Saint into the entrance of the Third Medicine Valley, followed by Yang Jian and Li Lingtian, who walked behind with a bruised face, resembling a defeated rooster. "Master, won't this lad be ruined?" The blood-prisoned Great Saint couldn't help but ask. His tone was not one of concern, but rather filled with mockery. Li Lingtian, hearing this, glared at him. Guan spoke. "If he can't endure, he can leave on his own." Years ago, when he had visited Tinya Valley, Luo Han had even asked him to bring a message, hoping Li Lingtian would return to the palace. However, Li Lingtian did not wish to go back. Although he often got beaten, he was indeed getting stronger. Defeating Yang Jian had become his obsession. Just as Li Lingtian was about to speak, he suddenly sensed something and looked up, his eyes widening in shock. Gu and Yang Jian and the blood-prisoned Great Saint all looked up, and the disciples in the valley did the same, their expressions increasingly changing, as if they were witnessing something terrifying. Chapter 289. Unbelievable Methods at Dusk. The sky was a fiery red as meteors from outer space streaked across, creating a magnificent scene. As these meteors fell, a vast heavenly fire descended, giving all beings the feeling that the sky was collapsing. What is that? How can there be such a huge fire in the sky? Will it affect us? Don't worry, we are within the Supreme Sect, protected by the Sect Protecting Formation. Could it be the demon cultivators from the Great Cold Demon Sect causing trouble? The disciples within the Third Medicine Valley engaged in a heated discussion, and the great cultivators, who had been playing chess, stood up and vanished from their spots. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord looked up, frowning. Sitting opposite him, stealing the 5 elements, remarked, "This divine power is no ordinary feat." The Nine-Finger Divine Lord looked at stealing the 5 elements and asked, "You've been traveling a lot these years. What exactly have you been searching for?" Facing his inquiry, stealing the 5 elements did not respond, but simply pointed upwards towards the sky. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the valley, Guan was riding on the back of the blood-prisoned Great Saint, also looking at the sky. He could feel that the meteors and the sea of fire in the sky were transformations of mana, deployed by someone possessing great divine power at the heaven and earth flying immortal level, affecting a vast area. It seemed that the century-old agreement was merely an ultimatum. During this period, the Great Cold Demon Sect would continue to attack, forcing the common people to flee. Of course, there was another possibility that they sought to force out a specific individual they were searching for. Due to personal vengeance, the commoners suffered, giving Guan a different understanding of the Holy Court. The Holy Court overall had good intentions, but inevitably had its corrupt members. Perhaps their way of thinking differed from Gu Ans. They could protect the common people, but also ignore them. Yang Jian glanced at Guan, and seeing his calm demeanor, he felt reassured. With his master around, even if the sky fell, he wouldn't be afraid. Li Lingtian approached Yang Jian and discussed the strange phenomenon in the sky with him. Guan patted the back of the blood-prisoned Great Saint, signaling him to move forward. As the blood-prisoned Great Saint took a step, a light curtain rose in the horizon, visible in all directions. It was the Supreme Sect protecting Great Formation. That was quick. Guan was secretly pleased. The Supreme Sect had not faced tribulations in many years, yet remaining vigilant indicated that the high ranks weren't overly dependent on Sword Venerable Fudao. Soon, The entire Supreme Sect was enveloped by the light curtain of the sect, protecting Great Formation, providing relief to all the cultivators within. Various sects and cities across the world activated their large formations, but inevitably, there were places that remained unprotected, and many beings in those places were vulnerable. In the North Sea Mountains, at the Mountain God Temple, sage Xianxia sat on the ground, gazing at the strange phenomenon in the sky, furrowing his brows. His concern was not for his safety, but rather for the well-being of the common people across the world. How could mere mortals withstand this sweeping blaze? Sage Xianxia turned to look at a stone statue in the courtyard, one he had carved himself depicting the mountain god. Although he saw the mountain god once a month, in his heart, he always felt a great distance from the divine. He turned back and began to kowtow to the divine statue of the mountain god. As meteorites continued plunging towards the earth, the fire enveloping the sky drew closer, intensifying the fiery hue between heaven and earth. Just then, all the flowers, plants, and trees across the continent emitted flickers of green light, swiftly rising upward like sparks growing stronger rapidly. A farmer clutching a hoe in the mountains was surrounded by the green light coming from all directions, causing him to panic. In the cities, terrified civilians saw trees within their courtyards trembling and releasing green light, orbs that floated up towards the sky. Within the palace, Li Xiandao stood at the entrance of the imperial study, observing the unusual appearance of the flora, his expression subtle. At that moment, beings across the continent, including demons, were startled by the surrounding phenomena, as flowers, plants, and trees were ubiquitous. In the Third Medicine Valley, Guan dismounted and looked around. The vegetation within the Supreme Sect hadn't emitted green light, so the disciples were all puzzled by the phenomenon in the sky, unaware of another spectacular sight beyond the Supreme Sect. However, as the green light from plants everywhere rose to a certain height, even the cultivators inside the Supreme Sect could see it. Various discussions erupted among them. Guan stood under a pavilion, watching this scenario unfold. Xiaoyu also emerged from the house and joined him. "It seems someone is protecting this continent," Xiaoyu said, her eyes reflecting the green light rising to meet the massive inferno falling from the sky, as if two worlds were about to collide in a mesmerizing display. The upper half of Gu N's face was illuminated by the fire, while the lower half was tinged with green. He asked in astonishment, "You mean to say a cultivator is behind this? How high must their cultivation level be?" Xiaoyu gave Guan a look, although she didn't think Gu and had a vast cultivation. But this guy couldn't be this clueless. Guan often brought Yang Jian out, who was growing rapidly, showing that Guan was not simple. Regardless of what Guan concealed, his knowledge was not something ordinary cultivators could match. "Perhaps it was Sword Venerable Fu Dao who made a move," Xiaoyu said softly, her gaze returning to the horizon. "Good guess." Guan mentally gave Xiaoyu a thumbs up, his eyes still fixed on the sky. Under the gaze of all beings on the continent, the vast green light collided with the sea of fire, and following a brief somber moment, the sky radiated intensely bright light, like endless fireworks exploding. After the brief silence, the earth trembled and strong winds fell from the sky, though not enough to threaten the land and mountains. The creatures across the land all sighed in relief, now understanding that the mysterious green light was there to protect them, to block the descending heavenly fire. However, they didn't know that not all continents and islands had protectors. Guthan protected only the continent he was on, and while the beings there were excited and grateful, countless others perished in despair. At the Soul Calming Pagoda, atop the pagoda, a white-robed Taoist suddenly opened his eyes, expressing surprise with a grunt. He attempted to divine the situation, but couldn't make any accurate predictions, his expression growing increasingly bizarre. He suddenly became interested and then vanished from the spot. Far away in the Supreme Sect, Guan was chatting with Xiaoyu when he suddenly sensed a rapidly approaching presence, sighing involuntarily. Why must someone always be looking for death? I'm going to check on Mystic Valley. We'll talk later, Guan said, heading towards the transmission array platform. Xiaoyu was not puzzled and looked up at the sky alone, admiring the powerful divine skills of Sword Venerable Fudao. Underneath a nearby tree, stealing the 5 elements and the 9-finger Divine Lord, sitting opposite each other at a chessboard, also looked up at the sky, paying no attention to Gu and stealing the 5 elements, spoke. The trouble has ultimately been drawn here. The guy has arrived. The 9-finger Divine Lord turned to him, asking, "Who is this guy?" A pupil of life-seizing Immortal, the real person Bai Hong, a renowned genius from the Great Cold Demon sect, with unfathomable cultivation, stealing the 5 elements, responded. The 9-finger Divine Lord's face subtly changed. Clearly, he had heard of Bai Hong's name. Stealing the 5 elements, chuckled. There's going to be a show to watch. Geniuses all have one flaw: excess confidence. Not far off, Xianxia, while staring at the sky, was also listening to stealing the 5 elements conversation. He couldn't help but think of the hand that had been placed on his shoulder that night and began to sympathize with Bai Hong. There were many hidden great powers in the world. No matter the cultivation level, one should never underestimate this world. This was the greatest realization Xianxia had after leaving the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect. In another place, under the red dawn sky, Bai Hong rapidly flew through, unfazed by the sweeping fire, as he passed over vast expanses of water without looking down. His gaze had fixed on a distant continent. Within his divine range, many great cultivators were resisting his divine power to protect various beings. Yet, that particular continent was special. Its methods piqued his interest, and moreover, he was unable to deduce the cause and effect of its mana. Perhaps the individual behind it was related to the person his master sought. Thinking of this, Bai Hong's eyes gleamed with anticipation. He was acting not only on behalf of his master, but also to seize an opportunity for himself. Snap! A hand suddenly pressed onto his shoulder, bringing his full-speed flight to an immediate halt, causing his mana and chi blood to surge chaotically, and he even felt a strong discomfort as if his primordial spirit was about to leave his body. When he tried to break free, he was horrified to discover that he had lost control over his body and soul. He couldn't even achieve primordial spirit emergence, which made him widen his eyes and instinctively panic. In an instant, Bai Hong theorized many possibilities. Bai Hong, a 150,908-year-old 9 layers of heaven and earth flying immortal, is lamentable to die here. Guan looked at Bai Hong's lifespan and thought so. Guan didn't employ his soul-capturing skill, but prepared to directly annihilate Bai Hong. He intentionally allowed Bai Hong to wait for a few moments to fully experience this despair, which also served as a punishment for his crimes. Bai Hong felt the pressure on his shoulder lessen and was about to speak when the hand suddenly tightened. With a squeeze from Guan, Bai Hong instantly turned to ash, his soul dispersing without a sound. He then disappeared from a spot. Back in the forest around Mystic Valley, Guan pretended to inspect medicinal herbs, and a notification popped up before his eyes. He successfully seized 38,000 years of lifespan. Not too bad. Guan wasn't worried about life-seizing Immortal coming for revenge. If he came, Guan would kill him. Could the carefree, primordial Immortal threaten the divine Immortal of wondrous Dharma? If a stronger presence appeared, and he was uncertain of his chances, he would flee. So far, it seemed unlikely that the Holy King would make a move, as it would hurt his image. Otherwise, why wouldn't he personally search for his enemy's reincarnation? Being able to summon the Great Cold Demon sect showed that the Holy King had his reservations. The sea of fire in the sky lasted for 30 minutes before completely dissipating. The green light enveloping the continent transformed into a sea of clouds, dispersing with the wind, and night fell. Although the world had darkened, the spirits of all beings remained unsettled for a long time. When Guan returned to the third Medicine Valley, Xiaoyu had already returned to her house. He could only join a group of disciples gathered in the chess-playing area, who were discussing the earlier phenomena. With stealing the 5 elements and the nine-fingered divine lord present, the disciples could greatly expand their knowledge and also learn about the incredible methods of Sword Venerable Fudao. Chapter 290. The Identity of the Senior Inside the Soul-Calming Pagoda. Life-seizing immortal opened his eyes, a frown creasing his brow, his eyes filled with doubt and suspicion. Why has his aura ceased? Life-seizing immortal began to cast spells and calculate. He did not consider the possibility that Bai Hong had really died. After all, he knew how high his disciple's cultivation level was. Within the same realm, Bai Hong had the power to suppress 3 divine exotic ghost kings single-handedly, which showed how terrifying his strength was. Even if he encountered a carefree, primordial immortal, he would not die without a trace. However, no matter how he calculated, he could not deduce Bai Hong's whereabouts. Bai Hong's karmic ties were still fading away. This indicated that Bai Hong had most likely fallen, and moreover, had been scattered to the winds, with the heaven and earth rules erasing the marks of his existence. Life-seizing immortal's eyebrows knitted tightly together, his heart filled with shock and anger. Had a carefree, primordial immortal made a move? To achieve such a feat, it would certainly not be a low-level, carefree, primordial immortal. The first thing life-seizing immortal thought of was a being from the Holy Court. How could such a formidable existence hide in this mortal world region? In life-seizing immortal's mind, the strongest beings in this mortal world region were at most in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. The sects here merely touched upon powers from outer heaven. A master of divine exotic realm was sufficient to suppress this mortal world region for so many years. How could a carefree, primordial immortal possibly be lurking here? Wait. Life-seizing immortal suddenly thought of the 7-star spirit realm. Although his impression of the 7-star spirit realm was mediocre, he had some recollection. The 7-star spirit realm had always curried favor with the holy king he supported. The holy king disdained the 7-star spirit realm, but some under the holy king had received benefits from the 7-star spirit realm. To some extent, one could say the 7-star spirit realm was a force on the same side as him. He remembered a Taoist friend mentioning that the 7-star spirit realm had sought help before. However, the Taoist friend thought the 7-star spirit realm was not significant enough to warrant his intervention, so he assigned them a task. Consequently, just as the 7-star spirit realm had assisted the divine exotic realm's emergence, it was dismantled because some residual forces still existed, so his Taoist friend didn't think much of it, assuming it was just a local power struggle. Now, it occurred to him, could it be that this mortal world region was hiding something? Could it have something to do with that reincarnated being? Life-seizing immortal's eyes flickered, not with fear, but with a hint of delight. The massacre of the common people was not his main goal. All of this was to force out the reincarnated being. Now that signs had begun to show, how could not be pleased? Immediately, he took out an ancient bronze oil lamp and cast spells towards the wick. It's time to call the old fogies together. The catastrophe triggered by Bai Hong had consequences far and wide, its extent immeasurable. The continent where the supreme sect resided was spared from catastrophe, leading many sects to speculate that it was Sword Venerable Fudao's doing, causing his name to spread like wildfire across the continent once again. When the beings of the continent were excited and in awe, the sea was deadly silent. Numerous islands and landmasses have been turned into seas of fire. Could ordinary immortal cultivation sects withstand divine powers unleashed by Bai Hong? Even if the sects formed their formations in time, they could not hold back the sky-high flames. This was one of the reasons Gu and had taken action. This heavenly fire caused a third of all creatures in the mortal world region to die, a staggeringly large number. After the disaster had passed, on the 7th day, Guan came alone to a mortal-seeking island, where the atmosphere within was grave, with significantly fewer cultivators coming and going, and a tense mood pervading the streets. Judging by the buildings within the city, it had not suffered from the heavenly fire's onslaught, but the surrounding seascape was littered with countless dead fish and demonic creatures, showing that Immortal Seeking Island was within the reach of the heavenly fire as well. The divine skills of a heaven and earth flying immortal were enough to obliterate all beings. Guan called over Xianxia, who heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing him. "Elder, I'm so glad you've come." Xianxia's tone held a hint of resentment. 7 days earlier, he truly thought he was going to die on Immortal Seeking Island. Though he had a narrow escape, he trembled with fear every day, dreading the sudden arrival of another catastrophe. Guan teased, "That's scared." Xianxia nodded. "How could I not be? Did you see that great fire? It was terrifying, blotting out the sky. Just imagining the cultivation level of the person behind it scares me." He wanted to say it might far surpass that of a loose immortal, for there were many loose immortals on Immortal Seeking Island, and he had occasionally witnessed loose immortals in combat, which allowed him to make comparisons. But then he thought of Guan being a loose immortal and immediately held his tongue. "Don't worry," Guan consoled. "Evil has never triumphed over good. The person behind the scenes will definitely face retribution." In fact, the orchestrator of this catastrophe, Bai Hong, was already dead. The reason Guan had come so late was to guard against a sudden assault from life-seizing immortal on the Supreme Sect. Life-seizing immortal had not shown up, and, given his capabilities, he must have known of Bai Hong's demise. His absence likely meant he was plotting something. Guan felt there was a good chance he was shaking the tree to see what falls. The Great Cold Demon Sect, after all, was a colossal force in the world, with countless cultivators whose numbers were difficult to estimate. Later, Guan followed Xianxia around to learn the situation on Immortal Seeking Island. According to Xianxia, after experiencing this calamity, the island master was clearly planning to abandon Immortal Seeking Island. He had already instructed people to transport part of his property and disciples away, and within the Sea Protection Mansion, everyone was in a state of panic, with cultivators like Xianxia unsure of where to go. Previously, Immortal Seeking Island was their home and their greatest support. The Sea Protection Mansion would not take them with them. After hearing this, Guan did not offer an opinion, but asked Xianxia to take him to purchase medicinal herbs, which made Xianxia even more nervous. He feared this was Guan's last visit to Immortal Seeking Island. An hour later, the two arrived at Xianxia's courtyard, and after Guan sat down, Xianxia immediately poured wine for him. Guan did not refuse, and his attitude made Xianxia feel somewhat more at ease. Only after Xianxia had poured the wine did Guan speak. "Rest assured, I truly wish to obtain Immortal Seeking Island. Soon, I will send a wandering immortal to take over Immortal Seeking Island, and then your standing within the Sea Protection Mansion will rise. You, on the other hand, should diligently cultivate, so in the future you can be worthy of a high position." "Wandering immortal?" Xianxia trembled slightly, tentatively asking, "Elder, might I know who you truly are?" Guan, being only with a loose immortal cultivation level, but able to invite a wandering immortal, suggested that Guan had the backing of a great power. This was a pleasant surprise for Xianxia. No matter how strong one person was, they could not compete with a vast force. Guan replied, "It's better for you not to inquire about my identity. Knowing too much is of no benefit to you. Even if we truly can't withstand an attack from life-seizing immortal in the future, I will take you away. I have a place where you can live in peace. However, before that happens, I want to take a gamble. What if a great power manifests from the sea to crush that life-seizing immortal?" Xianxia nodded vigorously. Whatever the case, his job was to cling to Guan's coattails. Of course, deep down, he believed life-seizing immortal was unbeatable. The previous heavenly fire had left too deep of a scar on his psyche, and thinking about it still frightened him. "Elder, what do you need me to do now?" Xianxia asked respectfully. Chapter 291. Do you want to join the Great Cold Demon Sect? Guan had stayed in Xianxia's residence for an ancient hour. After he left, Xianxia was brimming with excitement, and his face was a bouquet of smiles. The predecessor had entrusted him with so many matters, which assuredly meant he wouldn't easily forsake Immortal Seeking Island. He hadn't deceived him. Moreover, what need had the predecessor to deceive him? He was just a minor cultivator at the nascent soul realm. If the predecessor wished not to take him, a single stern glance would have sufficed to silence any further pleas from him. Meanwhile, Guin had returned to the premises of the Supreme Sect, pondering as he walked into the third Medicine Valley, which wandering immortal should assist him. Wandering immortals were not minor cultivators. How could one easily control them? The Nine-Fingered Divine Lord was not an option, for Guin feared exposing himself, given that the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord had been to Immortal Seeking Island. Neither Xianxia nor stealing the 5 elements were reliable. Guin was not in a rush. There was still time. If need be, he could use the Mortal Jade to sway someone, asking Mortal World Peak to dispatch a wandering immortal to Immortal Seeking Island to assist him. Now, as the Peak Master of Mortal World Peak, which was rivaled only by Great Cold Demon Sect in strength and surpassed it in heritage, he felt Mortal World Peak would not fear the Great Cold Demon Sect. The Great Cold Demon Sect needed to do the Holy Court's dirty work to survive, whereas Mortal World Peak was different. It could hold office in the Holy Court. Over the long years, Mortal World Peak had sent how many immortals to the Holy Court? Guin believed Mortal World Peak would not fear the Great Cold Demon Sect. Of course, Mortal World Peak would not oppose Great Cold Demon Sect unless sufficient benefits tempted them to dare offend both the sect and its backing, the Holy King. Reflecting on this, Guin suddenly felt sentimental. No matter how high one's cultivation realm, one could not escape the web of relationships and favors. Only those strong enough to disregard the entire immortal path could act recklessly and willfully. The karmic ties of the world were too complex, with the karma of all beings interlinked in a tangled mesh. Even the weakest beings, when followed through their karmic associations, were connected to immensely powerful entities. Guin surveyed Medicine Valley and did not spot Nine-Fingered Divine Lord or stealing the 5 elements, but found Xianxia, who was engrossed in studying Journey to the West. He could not understand Shun Zinza's fascination with Journey to the West and felt that he had grown increasingly distant from the Bitter Sea Buddha sect, barely mentioning Buddhism these days. Guin did not disturb Xianxia, but instead headed towards his loft. Compared to worrying about the affairs of the world, what to read next concerned him more, with strange occurrences being commonplace in books through the ages. Recently, Guin took pleasure in reading histories. 5 years later, 210-year-old Guin practiced his exercises in Mystic Valley and glanced at his attribute panel. Realizing he was short just under 600,000 years from a 2-billion-year lifespan compared to others' understanding of their own cultivation level, Guin felt a greater sense of achievement watching those numbers of lifespan. But was it really just lifespan? These numbers were clearly his cultivation. After morning practice, Wuxia approached Guin and seeking guidance on the primordial reincarnation skill. Since lifting his cultivation restriction, his maximum lifespan had broken through to 410 years. Consequently, Guin taught him a more potent primordial reincarnation skill. Despite his diligent practice over the many years, he still had much to learn about the technique. Guin listened and then patiently guided him, enlightening Wuxia with a few words, which left him thrilled. Through the primordial reincarnation skill, he was sure his senior brother was no ordinary person and clearly also practiced this cultivation technique. With the access to medicinal herbs his senior brother had, he was bound to far surpass him. After imparting his advice, Guin turned and departed. Wuxia didn't follow, instead standing still and savoring his words. Guin walked into the forest and followed the path leading to the 8 scenic caves. By now, the 8 scenic caves were no longer a secret needing concealment, with Wuxia aware of his secret abode beneath Mystic Valley. Given the chance, Wuxia would watch over the disciples entering the forest, anxious lest any covet his senior brother's cave. Mystic Valley was never short of spies. Guin arrived within the 8 scenic caves, first picking ripe medicinal herbs, then directing the poison corpse to plant anew. The origins of myriad poison mystic skill left by Xianxia had started to bear fruit. Although he couldn't exploit the poison corpse to seize life from the herbs, sowing was straightforward without too much concern. He lay down under a green vine tree, and quickly 2 tendrils stretched over his shoulders and began massaging them. The green vine tree possessed spiritual wisdom, but on ordinary days, it preferred silence. Guan didn't press it. Rather, he relished the tranquility of life in the 8 scenic caves. Accustomed to life in Medicine Valley, taking the time to be alone in the 8 scenic caves was also enjoyable. He planned to stay overnight, as someone would visit him that evening. After finding a comfortable position, he pulled out a history book purchased from Immortal Seeking Island, recording the rise and fall of a powerful force. Time swiftly passed, until late at night, footsteps echoed in the corridor. Guan remained seated and did not even cast a glance that way. Soon, a figure approached him, accompanied by a faint fragrance. The visitor stood with her hands on her hips, clad in an exquisite purple robe, ornate with jade beads on her belt. Her long hair casually tied and 2 wooden hairpins inserted, her celestial beauty cloaked behind errant strands of black hair, a subtle smile adorning her face, and her eyes sparkling with mischievous delight. Guan lifted his head to look at her, appraising her, then chuckled. "Long time no see. How's it you seem younger? Did you practice some forbidden art?" The person standing before him was none other than Xianxia, the creator of the 8 scenic caves. Jiahua sect, founded by Xianxia, was now a top sect in the immortal cultivation world, even collaborating with the supreme sect. Of course, Jiahua sect's overall strength didn't yet match the supreme sect. "What nonsense! Your martial master already appears youthful." Xianxia glared at Guan, then slid off her shoes, placing her bare feet on the grass. She stretched languidly and sighed. "This place still feels comfortable after so many years. Just like home." Guan stood up and chuckled. "I've kept that coffin of yours. Want to lie inside for a while?" Looking for a beating, Xianxia raised her hand to strike Guan, who promptly dodged. She huffed, and then inquired, "Little brat, feeling anxious lately?" Guan asked curiously, "Why would you think so?" The life-seizing immortal from the Great Cold Demon sect declared he would wipe out all life. "How can you not be anxious? You're the one who fears death the most." "Well, sure, it is worrying, but what use is angst? When the sky falls, there are tall ones like you to hold it up." Guan spread his hands and spoke, eliciting a chuckle from Xianxia, seeing him still as light-hearted as ever. Xianxia took a step closer and whispered, "Would you like to join the Great Cold Demon sect?" Guan gave her a peculiar look. He didn't always keep an eye on Xianxia, only sending his divine sense her way occasionally when she came to mind. Upon sensing no danger, he would swiftly retract his focus. He hadn't expected Xianxia to establish ties with the Great Cold Demon sect. How did she manage that? Guan began to explore Xianxia's karmic ties while asking, "You know someone from the Great Cold Demon sect?" A flood of karmic images entered Guan's vision as he saw her pass. It turned out the continent from which the ephemera sect hailed was under the thumb of the Great Cold Demon sect, which was why the 7-star spirit realm dared not use 9 Nether Road to reach the other worlds. There, the Great Cold Demon sect was sovereign, while the ephemera sect was merely a regional sect. No comparison between the two could be made. According to the ghost mother of ephemera's words to Xianxia, the decline of the ephemera sect was influenced by the Great Cold Demon sect. Long ago, that continent did not belong to the Great Cold Demon sect. Following the unification, Jiahua sect, like other sects, shared access to the 9 Nether Road, which allowed the Ghost Mother to return to her roots, with Xianxia bridging connections through her to the Great Cold Demon sect. The Ghost Mother knew a great cultivator within the Great Cold Demon sect, a great cultivator with only Mahayana realm cultivation, likely a lowly figure within the sect. Although Sword Venerable Fudao has recently protected the continent, How can his soul strength contend with the great cold demon sect? He did not charge me with any tasks, so I deliberately returned to take you to the great cold demon sect. What harm in cultivating medicinal herbs there? By joining the great cold demon sect, that too could be arranged, Xianxia earnestly suggested. Guan felt moved, yet amused. Why does she always flip sides so easily? Guan shook his head. No, thanks. How comfortable could I be tending herbs in the powerful great cold demon sect? Perhaps no sooner than joining would I be refined into an elixir. That's a demon sect. Jiang Xiong glared at him, annoyed. With me around, who could dare to bully you? Are you highly cultivated? Surely not among the highest in the great cold demon sect. But to protect you? More than enough. Just calmly stay with me then. So I'd have to wait on you. Curry favor with you? Exactly, how about that? Right now, my feet are a bit sore. Come give me a rub. Spit, shameless. Gu would never agree. A man might be slain, but not insulted. Looking down, his face betraying disgust, he noted that Jiang Xiong's feet, which he had only bared moments ago, were already stained with mud and grass. Jiang Xiong watched Gu An's stubborn reaction, amused and keen to tease further, but she first needed to address serious matters. She spoke gravely. Guin, this time it's different. The great cold demon sect has sent vast numbers of cultivators here. Their might unmatched by 7-star spirit realm or star sea congregations. Even star sea congregations contemplates retreat. Not to mention them. Do you know about Nine Nether Road? Almost every sect on this continent has members desiring to flee through Nine Nether Road, including your supreme sect. Guin fell silent. Jiang Xiong continued. Actually, joining the great cold demon sect might not be ill-fated. Perhaps you'd even discover great opportunities. While innate aptitude is fated, there are plenty in this world who turn their lives around with later-day fortunes. Don't you desire the pursuit of eternal life? Guin gazed at her, replying, Thanks for your kindness, but I truly don't want to go. There are too many things and people here that I cannot abandon. As for fortunes you mentioned, when has this world ever offered fortune free from danger? Even venturing into the 8 scenic caves once nearly brought me peril. Hearing this, Jiang Xiong grew frustrated. Why was this boy so stubborn? Guin added, Moreover, I feel this catastrophe might not be insurmountable. I believe in sword venerable Fu Dao, believe in the triumph of good over evil. Surely, there are many great powers in this world who can stand against the great cold demon sect. I often read books, and don't they all say, if man will strive, then heaven will thrive? The great cold demon sect, which treats life so wantonly, no matter how powerful, will eventually meet its reckoning. Aligning with them is not a righteous path. With that, he raised the book in his hand with a determined expression. Chapter 292. The world has changed. Hearing Gu An's words, Jiang Xiong fell into silence. She felt somewhat lost inside. She had always been faced with choices. She had escaped from 1,000 Autumn Pavilion to the Supreme Sect, then from the Supreme Sect to the Nine Nether Road. And even after establishing the Juhua Sect, she still had to flee to the Great Cold Demon Sect. Could it be that all her choices had been wrong? It seemed that no matter when she returned, Guin never changed. Guin saw the mood she was in. He was afraid of saying too much. After all, she didn't have the confidence he did. How could he judge everyone by his own standards? My nature dictates that I cannot travel far and wide. You are much stronger than I am. You can go on adventures, but you must never fully trust anyone, especially the demon sect, Guin said. Jiang Xiong snapped to attention upon hearing this. What was she thinking? If she hadn't fled, she'd already be dead. Even compared with Guin, her cultivation level was rising rapidly. Although the path seemed difficult and bitter, her cultivation was her achievement. She was now at the 7th floor of the divinity transformation realm. Thinking of this, Jiang Xiong smiled. She glared at Guin and said, You've refused me time and again. Be careful, or I might stop caring about you. When you run into trouble and think of me, it will be too late. Guin solemnly said, "As long as you are safe, it doesn't matter if you forget about me. Meeting and knowing each other in this life is a destiny forged over 100 lifetimes." Touched by his words, Xianxia thought to herself, "This brat knows how to talk. If his cultivation were higher, how many girls of heavenly pride would he lead astray?" Of course, she believed that Guin truly thought this way and wasn't just trying to please her. After knowing him for so many years, she never heard Guin ask her for anything. Xianxia looked at Guin, wanting to tease him, but no words could pass her throat. That's because this time, the situation was truly different. She felt that Guin had underestimated the power of the great cold demon sect. Indeed, in the past few years, when the heavenly fire calamity that covered the skies was blocked by sword venerable Fudao, the common beings on the mainland did not see the tragic scenes over the seas, where many creatures died in agony. The one who had acted was only a cultivator from the Great Cold Demon Sect, and now a large group of cultivators from the Great Cold Demon Sect was on their way. Just the thought filled her with despair, seeing no glimmer of hope for victory. Who in the world could stand against the colossal presence of the Great Cold Demon Sect like this? Xianxia looked at Guin's gentle smiling face and suddenly felt a pang of heartache. Silly boy. What is written in books is not necessarily true. Indeed, since ancient times, good has triumphed over evil. But if evil wins, it can become the new good. Xianxia did not immediately leave after returning, but stayed within the 8 Sina caves. Guin would visit her every other day, each time trying various ways to persuade him, whether by tempting him with legends of the Great Cold Demon Sect or by teaching him spells. Guin steadfastly refused, but since he didn't want to confront her directly, they were at a stalemate. Half a month passed. The weather was still scorching hot. As Guin came down from the loft, he was confronted by Xiaoyu at the foot of the stairs. "Who is that woman?" Xiaoyu asked, staring at Guin. Her expression was calm, but her eyes seemed rather sharp. Guin was surprised and asked, "What woman?" "There's a scent of another woman on you." "So what if there is? What about it?" Guin didn't seem to care, chuckling. After all, in this world, it's the explanations that are suspect. The less you care, the less significant it seems. In fact, nothing had happened between him and Xianxia, but he couldn't betray her by revealing her plan to defect to the Great Cold Demon Sect. Guin hadn't urged Xianxia to give up on joining the Great Cold Demon Sect because he wasn't sure of the sect's strength himself. If the Great Cold Demon Sect turned out to be powerful enough that even he couldn't deal with it, he'd have to flee too. Xiaoyu looked at Guin and said, "Haven't you noticed a change in the atmosphere of the mortal world?" Guin looked around and said, "How has it changed? Those who should be sweeping are sweeping. Those who want to play chess are still playing chess. Look, there's even a rat leading an ox." Xiaoyu followed his gaze and couldn't help but shake her head and chuckle. "Never mind, it's just as well. In life, cherishing the present is enough," she said softly before turning back to her room to continue her cultivation. Guin didn't try to retain her. Instead, he kept his gaze fixed on Medicine Valley. He saw much more than Xiaoyu did, and much clearer too. Ever since the reel by Hong displayed heavenly fire, the entire sea had been engulfed by a frenzy of escape, which gradually affected the mainland. Many noble families began to venture across the seas or rush to the 9 Nether Road. Moreover, many were spreading rumors that the Great Cold Demon Sect was about to launch a massive invasion, all of which Guin knew were minions hastily recruited by the Great Cold Demon Sect cultivators, intended to sow panic in this part of the mortal world. At the Say-breaking rift, the soul-calming pagoda was already crammed with countless cultivators from the Great Cold Demon Sect, the least of whom were at the Nirvana realm, with the number of heaven and earth flying immortals surpassing 100. Besides the life-seizing immortal, there were even 3 carefree primordial immortals, a total of 4 carefree primordial immortals. This force was absolutely overwhelming in this part of the mortal world, unstoppable. The key was that the Great Cold Demon Sect was still sending reinforcements. Guan hadn't made a move yet because he didn't know the full extent of the great cold demon sect's resources. However, he wasn't just waiting idly. He had already used his divine sense to scan the great heavenly spirit land, looking for a safe place far from this part of the mortal world. If he really couldn't stand against them, he would take everyone he cared about with him and leave, ready to start life anew. Of course, this was a last resort. It all depended on whether the great cold demon sect had a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. So far, the highest level among the carefree primordial immortals was only the 5th floor. Before a divine immortal of wondrous dharma appeared, Guan, who was at the 9th floor of the divine immortal of wondrous dharma realm, wouldn't panic. After watching for a while, Guan turned and left. An ancient hour later, riding on the blood prison great saint, he arrived at Xianxia Valley with Xianxia and Li Lingtian following behind. Li Lingtian wore an impatient expression. It was clear he was not keen on coming to Xianxia Valley. Li Xiandao was waiting inside the valley. Guan, accompanied by the 2 men, entered the courtyard where Li Xiandao was. By now, Li Lingtian's cultivation had reached the 8th floor of the core formation realm, pleasing Li Xiandao, who complimented him for not neglecting his cultivation. Let's get one thing straight. I don't want to go back. Besides, Father Emperor, you're still in good spirits, so there's no need for me to act as the crown prince. Li Lingtian said immediately. Li Xiandao shook his head with a smile, while Guan actually found this quite amusing. Li Xiandao planned to reign as emperor for eternity. Naturally, the crown prince was the most feared threat. The only reason Li Lingtian became the crown prince was on behalf of Empress Yang and the Yang family. Li Lingtian's words made Guan look at him with newfound respect. This youngster seemed to have the wisdom of playing the fool. Li Xiandao became serious. It's not about you returning to the palace, but to your mother's family to sail with them. There's no room for discussion. Your mother has given a strict order. Li Lingtian was taken aback. He instinctively wanted to ask why, but he quickly understood. For a time, the atmosphere in the courtyard fell silent. Li Xiandao turned to Guan and asked, "The Supreme Sect has yet to formulate a strategy. Do you want to join Lingtian in leaving?" The reason the Supreme Sect had no strategy was something Guan had heard from LV Batian. The Hall of Elders had debated multiple times about whether to evacuate, fearing that it might offend Sword Venerable Fudao, who had been willing to protect them. How could they run away now? Sword Venerable Fudao took action not for himself, but to save them, the mortal spirits. LV Batian also consulted Guan, asking his opinion on whether they should evacuate. This time, Guan offered no advice. He wanted the Supreme Sect to make their own decision. If the Supreme Sect chose to flee, he certainly wouldn't follow them, but would find a place to hide instead. From then on, his connection with the Supreme Sect would be severed. Guan had no burdens regarding the Supreme Sect. He owed them nothing. Quite the contrary, the sect owed him a lot. It'll pass. Let the Supreme Sect decide. I can't leave the Supreme Sect, Guan answered. Upon hearing this, Li Lingtian quickly said, "Father Emperor, I can also—" "Shut up," Li Xiandao barked, his eyes sharply intimidating. For a moment, Li Lingtian felt afraid. Yang Jian and the blood prison great saint looked at Li Xiandao in shock. Why did this emperor seem no ordinary man? This situation is different from before. If you follow the Supreme Sect to evacuate, chances are you will never see your mother again in this life. You must go back. Li Xiandao took a deep breath and said coldly. His mood had been bad all this time, had merely been suppressing it. He had worked hard for many years to secure his empire, and now a calamity threatened to destroy it. How could he not feel indignant? Yet, compared to the immense depth of the great cold demon sect, Taizong dynasty had no intention to resist. Guan looked at Li Xiandao and asked, "Uncle, what about you?" Li Lingtian turned his gaze angrily to Li Xiandao. Li Xiandao looked at his own teacup on the table and said softly, "Everyone can escape except me. Even if I have to die, let me die alongside my subjects." With so many people in the Taizong dynasty, not all could escape. If he thought of leaving, the dynasty would surely descend into chaos. Li Lingtian froze, his eyes softening as he looked at Li Xiandao. Yang also grew solemn out of respect for the emperor who had gifted him a divine weapon. The blood prison great saint hadn't expected Li Xiandao to be so resolute, and he rose from his crouch in surprise. Guan addressed Li Xiandao. "Uncle, have you forgotten the goal you once sought?" Li Xiandao replied. "Without my subjects, what is an emperor's throne worth? An emperor who cannot protect his empire is bound to fail. Even if the empire were to be rebuilt, it would be meaningless." His words inspired admiration in everyone present. Luo Hun even knelt down, expressing with a heavy voice, "Your Highness, I am willing to follow and serve you unto death without regret." Li Xiandao merely waved his hand, not saying much more. Sure, he spoke sincerely, but he hadn't resigned himself to fate. He was gambling. He was betting on the sword Venerable Fudao to overturn the great cold demon sect. He couldn't forget the shock sword Venerable Fudao had brought him during past calamities. He couldn't forget that day when the skies were filled with fierce flames pressuring the living beings, and countless green lights rose up, giving him hope. He felt sword Venerable Fudao was different, a difference that perhaps even transcended cultivation levels. Despite many great cultivators in the world, he just felt that sword Venerable Fudao was the most special. From sword Venerable Fudao, he sensed an aura. That was the aura of invincibility. Should sword Venerable Fudao's heart be kind, then peace would reign throughout the land. Chapter 293. How about I slice that continent in half with one sword? After staying in Tianyao Valley for an ancient hour, Guan left with Blood Prison Great Saint and Yang, while Li Lingtian stayed behind in Tianyao Valley, as he was about to head south and venture out to sea. If nothing unexpected happened, at least in Li Lingtian's view, it would be very difficult for him to see Guan and Yang again in his lifetime. When they parted, Li Lingtian asked Guan to convey a message to Ji Xiaoyu, speaking words of blessings. "Master, is there really no power in the world willing to come out and stop the great cold demon sect?" Blood Prison Great Saint asked with a tone full of emotion. In his world, there existed no force as formidable. Yang also looked towards Guan, unworried as long as his martial master was calm. Guan responded, "How can there not be?" Many led the charge towards the soul calming pagoda, only to fall due to lack of strength. He spoke the truth. Every now and then, a group of cultivators and demons would assault the soul calming pagoda, and even if they perished, others would follow their will. Whether the world was good or evil, it was hard to say, but one thing was certain: there existed real justice, and some cultivators deemed it more important than eternal life. Guan looked into the distance. "Great cold demon sect, you'd better have something worth my fear, or even the Holy King can't protect you. What would the Holy Court do if angered? Kill, if necessary, or simply flee to outer heaven?" If no trouble came knocking, Guan naturally preferred to stay low in the Supreme Sect. But when trouble came knocking uninvited, he wouldn't swallow his pride. Along the way, having killed numerous madmen, Guan was always aware of how terrifying his ability to seize life was. In anyone else's hands, it would have caused catastrophe across the world. He managed restraint because that was who he was. Everyone had their path, and he only wished to walk his without guilt. However, the more chaotic the world became, the more he desired to unleash slaughter. He wanted to kill the people of the great cold demon sect. Across the tumultuous seas lay the sea-breaking rift, splitting the ocean in two, beside which stood the towering soul-calming pagoda, its top seeming to touch the sky. The sky brimmed with stifling thunderclouds, with occasional muffled thunder. At the first level of the soul-calming pagoda, the life-seizing immortal sat on a lotus throne, flanked by 3 individuals, none inferior in presence, while hundreds of great cold demon sect cultivators stood in the hall, creating a cheerful ambience with laughter, looking nothing like demon cultivators, adorned in splendid garments and dignified demeanors, some even appearing ethereal and wise. A woman in red next to the life-seizing immortal opened her eyes, turned to him, and asked, "Brother, how much longer must we wait? Are there still beings in this mortal region that the four of us cannot subdue?" The other two carefree primordial immortals opened their eyes, their expressions indifferent, eyes fixed on the life-seizing immortal. Life-seizing immortal slowly opened his eyes, saying, "Caution is the parent of safety. Bai Hong's death was too peculiar. We must not be careless. Remember what this land hides." The three carefree primordial immortals fell silent. Having lived for hundreds of thousands of years and weathered many storms, they shed their arrogance upon hearing life-seizing immortals' words. Indeed, the greater the power, the greater the caution required. At this moment, someone in the hall stepped forward and loudly said, "Venerable masters, why not ignite another disaster to test the limits of that mysterious being and drive more people away, lest they hinder us?" With these words, the hall erupted with agreement and cries for revenge for Bai Hong. Life-seizing immortals' gaze turned to the first speaker, a blue-robed Taoist with a treasure sword at his waist and a folding fan in hand, his inherent sword intent formidable even just standing there. "Xianxia, what would you like to do?" asked the life-seizing immortal. Silence followed in the hall. With a smirk, Xianxia the Taoist replied, "I wield a sword capable of slicing oceans and moons alike. How about I cleave that continent in half with a single strike?" After speaking, he raised his arms, turned to face the crowd, prompting applause and cheers in the hall. The majority of cultivators present felt no pressure, but rather a playful curiosity to see who would dare oppose the great cold demon sect. Were it another mortal region, they might have worried, but here, like tigers among chickens, where was the reason to fear? Watching Xianxia display such vigor, the other three carefree primordial immortals smiled, having watched him grow up and master Taoist sorcery. Now capable of standing on his own, they were naturally pleased. After a moment's hesitation, life-seizing immortal slowly nodded. Seeing this, Kingston's smile grew larger, declaring, "In that case, I will go now. Fellow disciples, come and enjoy the spectacle with me." The life-seizing immortal added, "Do not stray far. Master, rest assured." Xianxia saluted with his hands, turned, and left, followed by a throng. The woman in red turned to the life-seizing immortal, saying, "Now's a good time for you to speak up and accelerate the process. After all, delay could lead to problems." Life-seizing immortal hesitated again, then slowly nodded. In Supreme Sect, within a bright hall, all elders gathered, including Lu Lingjun and Nine-Finger Divine Lord, most frowning in concern. LV Baitian, sitting in the sect leader's seat and flanked by 5 supreme elders, appeared equally at a loss. Vice Sect Leader Jihan Tian spoke out. "Sect Leader, just say what you're thinking so we can prepare in advance. We can't possibly wait until a catastrophe is upon us to start considering our response." At this, other elders also spoke up, urging LV Baitian. LV Baitian took a deep breath and said, "I fear that once we retreat, our connection with Sword Venerable Fudao will be irreversibly severed." A few agreed with him. An elder stood up and argued, "Survival is the most important thing. So far, none of us have even seen Sword Venerable Fudao, let alone understand his views on the matter. Moreover, we simply cannot compare ourselves to Sword Venerable Fudao. If he wants to flee, he can. His Tao level is beyond ours." This sentiment was echoed by others, considering not only themselves but also their disciples and descendants, each backed by influential families or intricate networks. The current Supreme Sect comprised millions of disciples, and the number scattered across various places was immeasurable. Gu Zong also sighed, unusually not supporting LV Baitian this time. Lu Lingjun also wished for the Supreme Sect to evacuate. Her reluctance to leave Supreme Sect stemmed from concern for the people of the Third Medicine Valley, hoping they wouldn't perish in this impending catastrophe. LV Baitian's expression turned extremely grim as he took another deep breath and declared, "If so, Those who want to leave may do so. However, Supreme Sect must remain on this continent, empty or not. This is our stance. Without Sword Venerable Fu Dao, there would be no Supreme Sect today. As he spoke these words, he relaxed. A smile appeared on his face, the decision lifting the burden from his shoulders. It would be death at worst. His statement caused an uproar in the hall. Sect leader, think again. If it really comes to it, why not ask the elder in front of the heaven-cutting axe for advice? You can't make such arbitrary decisions. Yes, what does it mean to say the sect can be empty but not leave? Where does that leave our dignity? The sect is a whole. We must advance or retreat together. Sect leader, let's leave together. We can ask Sword Venerable Fu Dao to join us. LV Baitian, listening to their words, felt their hypocrisy. A bunch of cowards afraid to take responsibility and scared to die. As he was about to speak, a voice suddenly echoed through the heavens and earth. From today, my disciple, Xianxia the Taoist, will annihilate one region each day. Worldly beings, your time is running out. Today, let's see which region's creatures are most pitiable, unfortunate enough to be the first annihilated. As the life-seizing immortal's voice faded, a chill ran through everyone in the hall. They were not frightened by his words, but felt a terrifying sword intent targeting them. More precisely, every sentient being on the continent was terrified by this sword intent. Chapter 294, Deadline of Death Inside the Third Medicine Valley. Guan and an Xian stood in a garden area, with Guan instructing what to plant next. An Xian listened attentively. Just then, the voice of the life-seizing immortal suddenly echoed. He was actually planning to exterminate one region of heaven and earth every day. An Xian had no time to think further when a terrifying sword intent descended, causing a drastic change in her complexion. The previously bustling Medicine Valley fell silent in an instant. An Xian felt as if she were being crushed by a mountain, almost unable to breathe, which turned her complexion even paler. Suddenly, a hand landed on her shoulder, making her heart tremble. Before she could think further, the pressure on her body abruptly vanished. She turned her head instinctively, and, seeing it was her master's hand, she breathed a sigh of relief. Master, could it be that they've chosen the continent we're on? An Xian asked cautiously. Even though she was carefree on normal days, she feared death when faced with it. The words of the life-seizing immortal, coupled with the sudden sword intent, made it clear that the first chosen continent was the one they were on. Guan took a deep breath and feigned composure. Unclear. Let's go back inside first. Within the confines of the Supreme Sect, such calamities are not our concern. Whether we live or die, we leave it to fate. An Xian wanted to speak again, but Guan pulled her away. Another voice rang out in Medicine Valley. Ba. With Shun Zinz's words, everyone in Medicine Valley felt relieved, and disciples ran towards the pavilions. Rumble. The earth trembled as the Supreme Sect activated its great protective formation. Golden barriers rose up from all directions. By the time Guan and his companion reached the pavilion, Xiaoyu had already stepped outside. She gazed at the sky, the red Dao patterns on her forehead starting to flicker with tiny flames. Seeing this, Guan quickly approached her and asked, "You weren't frightened just now, were you?" Xiaoyu's Dao patterns returned to normal as Guan blocked her view. Her expression calmed down, and she nodded. No, it seems the life-seizing immortal is targeting the continent. It's probably related to the actions of Sword Venerable Fu Dao years ago. Guan comforted her. Don't overthink it. If the enemy is acting this way, it means Sword Venerable Fu Dao is still around. Take care of the valley for me. I need to make a trip to Mystic Valley. With that, Guan quickly headed towards the transmission array platform. Xiaoyu looked at his receding figure, wanting to say something, but she couldn't find the words. Somehow, this scene felt familiar, as if she had seen it somewhere. Guan swiftly arrived in Mystic Valley and saw Lu Jujia already calling disciples to take cover. He nodded to himself in approval. Taking advantage of the moment when no one was paying attention, he quickly walked into the woods, pretending to inspect medicinal herbs. Are you courting death? Caring about your flowers and plants at a time like this? You must be insane. The voice of Xianxia came from behind, and Guan turned to look, seeing her with an ugly expression walking towards him. She looked at Guan and said with resentment, "Now I can't even escape if I want to. Let's wait for death together." She could feel the sword intent approaching rapidly. Even if she tried to escape now, she was afraid it would be too late to reach the 9 Nether Road. Guan, squatting on the ground, couldn't help but punch the grass, picking up a handful of fallen leaves before standing up, his face filled with unwillingness. Xianxia looked at his expression and suddenly laughed, teasing, "What's wrong? Scared?" Guan tossed the leaves in his hand forward, as if venting his anger. He then turned to look at Xianxia and said, "I'm not afraid. I just find this disdain for life detestable." Xianxia fell silent, then said, "Come with me to the 8 Sina caves." Guan nodded and followed her up the mountain. Xianxia didn't notice the leaves that Guan had thrown floated up again, each leaf trembling. Only after they entered the entrance of the 8 scenic caves did the leaves disappear into the forest. In front of the soul-calming pagoda, tens of thousands of great cold demon sect cultivators floated in the air, their eyes focused on Xianxia, who was holding a sword. Such exquisite sword intent. Elder Brother Kingson's supreme mysterious sword Tao has reached the transformation realm. Indeed powerful, enough to sweep across the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. I heard that Elder Brother Bai Hong was defeated by Elder Brother Qingxin 1,000 years ago. The founder of the supreme mysterious sword Tao, the supreme mysterious ancestor, went to the Holy Land long ago. In 10,000 years, the only one who has reached such a level with the supreme mysterious sword Tao is Elder Qingxin. This sword strike, everyone should watch carefully, is a rare sight. The great cultivators of the great cold demon sect discussed animatedly, mostly in a light-hearted tone. Even though they already knew about the fall of Bai Hong, they were not panicked. They had the numerical advantage this time, and with 4 carefree primordial immortals as their support, how could they possibly die? Xianxia positioned his treasure sword in front of him, the blade perfectly aligning with his eyes. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, which astonishingly turned green. As soon as he opened his eyes, his sword intent fully erupted, silencing the surrounding noise. All eyes fell on Xianxia, and with a stern look, he immediately slashed with his sword. Sword light gleamed, chilling the heaven and sea, and even the rolling thunderclouds above were illuminated. As Xianxia swung his sword intent transformed into terrifying sword chi, shooting forward as his pupils suddenly contracted. In the reflection of his pupils, numerous green dots grew rapidly. From the onlooker's perspective, Xianxia's sword slashed out a terrifying sword chi tens of thousands of miles long, like a crescent moon sweeping across the sky. At that moment, a series of green light beams shot from the edge of the sky with even greater speed, too fast for anyone to react. Boom! The sword chi scattered, and Xianxia's eyes widened in disbelief as a green light reached him in a blink of an eye. As if time stood still, he saw a falling leaf amidst the green light. The leaf, carrying terrifying sword chi, directly shattered Xianxia's physical body and extinguished his soul. It wasn't just one leaf. Dozens more did the same, annihilating great cultivators of the great cold demon sect, the soul-calming pagoda trembling violently. The life-seizing immortal and his 4 carefree primordial immortal companions appeared out of thin air, casting spells swiftly to form a vast barrier, protecting all the disciples around them. Silence. The world rapidly fell into quietness, and all the disciples of the great cold demon sect trembled, displaying fear no longer masked by their previous nonchalant demeanor. The life-seizing immortal turned his head, noticing the leaves embedded all over the surface of the soul-calming pagoda, his pupils narrowing. It was leaves! The attack was too fast, so fast that by the time they realized it, more than a dozen disciples had died, all heaven and earth flying immortals. Even the red-clothed woman who had been urging the life-seizing immortal to speed up the process couldn't speak now. As powerful as the carefree primordial immortals were, they were filled with dread. The enemy had struck too fast, killing disciples right under their noses. It was as if someone had slapped them across the face, leaving a burning sensation. Guan followed Xianxia into the 8 scenic caves, with prompts of lifespan continuously appearing before him. This strike seized 4,300,000 years of lifespan. Guan hadn't used his full strength, but it was enough to terrify the life-seizing immortal and his associates. If they could summon even stronger beings, then they should call them sooner. If not, even if they gave up on exterminating this region of the mortal world, Guan would not let them go. The 100-year mandate set by the life-seizing immortal had already become his death sentence in Guan's mind. Xianxia let out a sound of surprise, feeling the terrifying sword intent suddenly disappear. Guan then asked, "Could it be that we've escaped this disaster?" Without looking back, Xianxia replied, "Can't say for sure." The two made their way to the green vine tree, with Xianxia starting to set up the formation. Guan asked her what she was doing. The smaller the range of the formation, the stronger its protection. I want to see if we can escape this disaster. Let's take a gamble. If it doesn't work, we're dead anyway, so worrying then would be pointless, Xianxia casually answered, making Guan want to cry and laugh at the same time. Meanwhile, the entire continent was in a state of tension. Even though the sword intent had vanished, the tightly wound nerves of all beings on the continent could not immediately relax. Many beings began to flee, and Guan even felt many presences flying out of the supreme sect, all in groups, which were noble families in flight. Inside the third medicine valley, Xianxia landed swiftly and found Xiaoyu. The two conversed inside the house. "I'm not leaving," Xiaoyu stated, expressionless. Upon hearing this, Xianxia became angry, but, for some reason, looking at Xiaoyu, he thought of a fellow descendant with the same name and surname. Although they looked different, their expressions at this moment made them seem like the same person. Xianxia's anger dissipated somewhat, and he said solemnly, "Regardless of whether the life-seizing immortal has chosen this continent, there will only be more dangers ahead. The Ji family must preserve its lineage. Why do you insist on staying?" Xiaoyu looked at him. "Someone must stay. I can give my spot to someone else. Besides, where can we flee to?" Xianxia felt suffocated with frustration. Years ago, he had tried to forcibly keep another Xiaoyu, without success. Now he wanted this Xiaoyu to leave, but it was still not possible. He couldn't understand why these descendants always opposed him. He was always looking out for their best interest. "There's no time left. You'd better go and persuade the other clan members," Xiaoyu reminded. Xianxia glared at her and left immediately. Xiaoyu was not his direct descendant, so he could only advise, without the right to forcibly take her away. Once Xianxia had departed, Xiaoyu thought for a moment and then walked out of her house. She went outside the courtyard, looking up at the sky, only to see numerous cultivators flying over Medicine Valley. It was unclear whether they were fleeing or preparing for battle. "The Great Cold Demon Sect," Xiaoyu murmured to herself, the Tao patterns between her eyebrows once more emitting thin flames. Time passed amidst the panic of beings below. The people were trapped in agony and anxiety. Until an ancient hour later, the atmosphere began to ease. Elder Lu looked at Xianxia and asked, "Senior, were we not chosen?" The other disciples looked at Xianxia as well. Shunzin's background was very mysterious, but the higher-ups of the Supreme Sect held him in high regard. Such an existence would certainly see further than they could. Xianxia frowned deeply, looking towards the sky, and said, "Indeed, we were not chosen." At his words, all the disciples rejoiced. Chapter 295. The Great Cold Demon Sect Attacks. Upon hearing Shinzin's words, the disciples of Medicine Valley all cheered, yet Xianxia hesitated as if he wanted to say more. He intended to say one thing, that it seemed no continent had been chosen. To obliterate a continent. What immense power it must require. He, being from the 9th layer of the wandering immortal realm, could surely sense it. However, he could not openly mention this, for fear that these mortals would be terrified. Even if they knew what would happen next, what could they do? Better to enjoy this surprise and live the remaining days as carefree as possible. Time continued to pass, with the moon setting and the sun rising. Only when the next day's sunlight swept across the great heaven and earth did the creatures of the continent finally breathe a sigh of relief, for the life-seizing immortal had said that each day one continent would be chosen, and they had survived the first day. The situation at the Supreme Sect also settled down. Although many noble families began to retreat, the core foundation remained unshaken. When Guan returned to the 3rd Medicine Valley, normalcy had returned to Medicine Valley. After Xiaochuan left and an Xian began to manage Medicine Valley, and because of her gentle nature, most disciples liked her, so there had been no issues under her management. Shenzhen found him soon after he returned. "Do you want a place to hide?" Shenzhen asked with a smug smile, her eyes gleaming behind her veil. While walking toward a distant garden, Guan casually asked, "How would we hide?" Following his steps, Shenzhen explained, "I can hide you inside a painting or scroll, and then keep it hidden. Wouldn't that be a refuge? People are trying to obliterate continents. Where could you hide?" "Underground, of course." He said he would obliterate continents. Sure, he meant to demolish the mortals and shatter the land, not obliterate the earth completely. "That makes sense. Are you a genius by any chance?" Guan suddenly realized, looking at Shenzhen with amazed eyes. A twitch appeared at the corner of Shenzhen's veiled mouth, clearly perceiving the sarcasm in Guan's tone. Guan continued, "Don't overthink it. I always feel that yesterday our continent was not excluded. That mysterious pressure was no lie. Also, haven't you noticed how calm today has been?" Upon hearing this, Shenzhen narrowed her eyes. "Are you suggesting that the Great Cold Demon Sect's offensive was thwarted?" "Very likely. After all, I trust that the heavens are just. There must be great cultivators out there with a heart for the mortals. A heretical path like the Great Cold Demon Sect cannot last forever," Guan declared with conviction, his face full of determination. Shenzhen suddenly found it hard to judge him. Calling him foolish wouldn't explain his current stature, and calling him naive wouldn't explain how he could write something as unique as Journey to the West. "You say the heavens are just. Tell me, do you believe that real immortals exist beyond those with great cultivation levels?" Shenzhen suddenly asked, curious. She had always believed that investiture of the gods in Journey to the West were not fabricated, but were inspired by something Guan had seen, elaborated with decorative imagination and fantasy. Perhaps, as Guan claimed, an immortal guided him in his dreams. Guan and Shenzhen chatted casually, a microcosm of the wider world, where everywhere people discuss the life-seizing immortal. Without his demise, the catastrophe would not end. 2 days later, Nine-Finger Divine Lord and Stealing the 5 Elements returned to the 3rd Medicine Valley, almost as if they had planned it. Sitting before a chessboard, they exchanged a look, their eyes heavy with gravity. "Did you feel it too?" Stealing the 5 Elements asked. The Divine Lord made his move, saying, "A net of heaven and earth, no escape." Stealing the 5 Elements then played his piece. "How come you have no escape? I'm the one who's bound by fate." Continuing to glance towards a distant pavilion, Ji Xiaoyu was his hope. The Divine Lord fell silent, sighing deeply. Stealing the 5 Elements looked at him, curiously asking, "Speaking of which, I've always wondered, what exactly are you looking for?" The Divine Lord didn't respond, leaving Stealing the 5 Elements contemplative, a subtle look crossing his face. In the divine exotic realm, by the sea, The master of divine exotic realm stood before the divine exotic life tablet, surrounded by 7 divine exotic ghost kings, all of them looking up into the sky. Beneath the blood-red sky hung a swirling horsetail whisk. Compared to the calm demeanor of the master of divine exotic realm, the other divine exotic ghost kings looked uneasy, knowing whom they faced. Master of divine exotic realm, prepare to join us in an expedition. A cold voice resounded, echoing through the entire great heaven and earth. In a distant cave, Zhang Buku also heard this voice and inadvertently opened his eyes, his brow furrowed in worry for the master of divine exotic realm. With an expressionless face, the master of divine exotic realm asked, "An expedition to where?" "To avenge divine exotic impermanence." The cold voice spoke again, causing the faces of the divine exotic ghost kings and the realm master to shift. The great cold demon sect and that entity were indeed going to clash. This battle might determine the fate of this mortal world region. In the Starseed congregations, a small heaven and earth, and House stood before the palace gates, observing disciples constantly entering and exiting the floating islands, his brows deeply furrowed. A figure appeared beside him, his master, Sage Fuchin. And Hao quickly said, "Master, it's good you're here. I need to speak with you. Let's talk while on the way. Prepare for retreat. We must withdraw today." Sage Fuchin said in a grave tone. "What?" And Hao couldn't help but ask. "The great cold demon sect is making a major descent, targeting the continent where the sword venerable Fu Dao resides. They appear to be intent on sieging your master," Sage Fuchin explained. On hearing this, Hao became anxious. Before he could reply, Sage Fuchin continued, "Your cultivation level won't assist your master. It's best to leave early. Your master, although strong, can't withstand the full assault of the great cold demon sect. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on the defensive." And Hao gritted his teeth. "My concern isn't for my master. I must go back." And Xian was still within the supreme sect. How could he abandon her? He immediately leaped up, intending to forcefully break out of the Star Sea congregation's realm. Suddenly, long hair wrapped around him, surprisingly Sage Fukin's horsetail whisk. "Master!" And Hao cried out in anguish, startling the other disciples. Sage Fuchin held the horsetail whisk, chanting incantations. The whisk's hairs quickly extended, gagging in Hao. "I'm sorry, disciple." Sage Fukin's eyes became resolute. This scene left the other disciples silent. Without discussion, they all understood and felt the heaviness in their hearts, likewise having people they couldn't leave behind. The Starseed congregations were about to flee. In another realm, Leah, leveraging divine exotic city, forcefully broke free, unobstructed by anyone. He quickly flew out over the Star Sea, heading towards the horizon. "Disciple, think carefully. Once you go, there's no turning back." An old voice sounded, and as Leah turned his head, he didn't see his master's figure. He did not answer, but instructed the divine exotic immortal spirit on his shoulder to move forward. The divine exotic immortal spirit howled, and the divine exotic city immediately displayed extraordinary speed, streaking towards the horizon. After flying for a while and seeing no one pursued, Leah relaxed, his gaze hardened. "Junior Brother Gu, wait for me." And the old ancestor, "I wonder if you're still thinking of me." Leah thought silently, his face heavy. Initially, his emotions weren't profoundly impacted, fueled only by fury as Zhang Buku became a divine, exotic, resentful ghost. However, the moment the Starseed congregations announced their departure, he panicked. The Starseed congregations were a major force at sea. If there was any chance of victory, they wouldn't be abandoning their domain. Hearing that the great cold demon sect aimed to target the sword venerable Fu Dao, he couldn't contain himself. The sword venerable Fu Dao was his primordial ancestor. He was less worried about him, as the ancestor could escape if he couldn't fight, but he feared for the others who might not escape. He had to be quick. Leah clenched his teeth, fearing the continent had already fallen. The divine exotic immortal spirit, however, was not panicked, leaping joyfully in the air, which both irritated and envied Liya. This creature seemed to fear nothing. Its confidence was unknown. Time rapidly passed. 2 ancient hours later, Liya, sitting atop the tower meditating, suddenly sensed something, opening his eyes to find the divine exotic city enveloped in darkness. Instinctively, he looked up, then his eyes widened in disbelief. How possible? Liya murmured to himself, his voice trembling, his eyes full of despair. In the third Medicine Valley, at the garden fence, Gun was stretching his muscles. Passing by, Yu Ying curiously asked, "What are you doing? Isn't there exercise in the morning?" Gun replied, "Just felt like moving. Is it not allowed?" What followed was sure to be a great battle. It must be said, the great cold demon sect was indeed frightening. The dense auras attacking from all directions were overwhelmingly oppressive, and once they arrived, if seen by the denizens of the continent, it would surely cause legs to tremble. Yu Ying looked at him, unable to resist asking, "Everyone is worried about the calamity. Why aren't you afraid?" "Because I'm not afraid, so I'm not frightened," Gun responded casually, his words leading Yu Ying to glare, feeling the urge to punch him. She couldn't understand Gun at all. Out for experience, he feared death. Yet, with calamity impending, he seemed not to fear it. Truly a baffling person. Yet, somehow, the more anxious she felt, the more she wanted to talk to Gun. Perhaps it was his fearless demeanor. Gun guessed her thoughts and smiled. "Whether you worry or fear, it won't change anything, will it?" Yu Ying opened her mouth, unsure how to respond. Gun drew his heavenly residence sword, suddenly unsheathing it. The sword's light gleamed in Yu Ying's face, snapping her out of her trance. Looking at Gun holding the sword, Yu Ying's earlier illusion reemerged, his forehead marked with golden patterns, appearing extraordinary, as if an immortal lord on earth. She had to admit, although Gu's cultivation level wasn't impressive, his appearance and bearing were truly out of this world, unlike a mortal. Gun raised his sword towards Yu Ying, the blade's tip reflecting in her pupils, causing her to shiver. If only this sword could slash away the fear in your hearts. How wonderful would that be? Gun said wistfully. Yu Ying was left in a daze. Chapter 296, The Strongest Sword. Sunlight shone on Gun, and Yu Ying felt as if he were draped in a layer of rosy clouds, his whole being radiating with splendor. She actually believed that Gun was speaking the truth. Gun's gaze fell on her, and he raised an eyebrow asking, "What? Are you intimidated by my aura of righteousness?" Yu Ying snapped back to reality and glared. "Who can't say things like that? If your sword is really that powerful, would you still be holed up here?" "Heh, what do you know? Hurry up and leave. Don't disturb my cultivation." Gun smiled, then sheathed his sword smoothly, believing himself to look quite dashing. Sadly, Yu Ying was blind to it. Yu Ying snorted and turned to leave. As she turned around, a smile appeared on her face. Talking with this silly boy had indeed had an effect. Her heart felt much better. At the same moment, under the tree, Xianxia opened his eyes, his gaze profound. His hand, clutching the prayer beads, moved faster, clearly anxious. Next to him, Wuxia and Nine-Finger Divine Lord, who were playing chess, stood up. "Let's call this game a draw," declared Nine-Finger Divine Lord without room for doubt. Wuxia's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're almost wiped out by me, and you dare call it a draw?" Nine-Finger Divine Lord said nonchalantly with a straight face and unwavering confidence. "The outcome is uncertain until the end." Wuxia shook his head with a smile, but said nothing more, disappearing into thin air. Nine-Finger Divine Lord's gaze swept over Medicine Valley, landing on the distant figure of Gu in, "What a pity I haven't won a single game against you yet." Nine-Finger Divine Lord muttered to himself before he, too, disappeared on the spot. Gun, who was stretching his limbs, felt numerous cultivators and demons taking flight across the continent. rushing towards its edges. Before the cataclysm, some wished to flee while others wished to fight. Those wishing to fight were driven by courage, righteousness, or compulsion, but at this moment, they had all made their decision. The question was whether they could maintain that courage once they witnessed the true might of the great cold demon sect. Guin turned and walked toward the transmission array platform. Along the way, the number of disciples who greeted him diminished, everyone preoccupied with their thoughts. After reaching Mystic Valley, Guin made his way toward the outskirts of Medicine Valley. Entering the woods, he drew out the heavenly residence sword in one hand while unsheathing the Qinghong sword with the other. The Qinghong sword buzzed faintly as Guin used his own mana to sever its connection with the white spirit sword. He could sense his junior sister's unease. "Do not fear, junior sister. It will soon pass," Guin murmured to himself, and as his words dropped, he was shrouded in a dark purple demonic chi that quickly engulfed his body, blazing furiously. His figure vanished into the depths of the forest, leaving no trace behind. At the edge of the continent, towering waves crashed against the shore. Above the mountains, great cultivators hovered in the air, with the vast landscape behind them and the endless ocean ahead. They hailed from different sects: Supreme Sect, Three Pure Ones Mountain, Sangtian Sect, Daodian Sect, Sword Sect, Candle Sky Peak, Flame Sect, Juhua Sect, and more. Sects across the world continuously dispatched cultivators to different edges of the continent. They were just one group, gathering rapidly beyond 100, with more cultivators on their way. As their numbers grew, a newfound confidence began to swell inside them. Xiao Dai, a cultivator from Supreme Sect with a cultivation level of the 9th layer of the Mahayana realm, became the leader, calming the surrounding cultivators and beginning to give battle instructions. Just then, an overwhelmingly terrifying pressure descended, prompting them to turn their heads in shock. In the next second, their faces paled, and even the ever-confident Xiao Dai gaped in despair. A vast black fog rolled in from the horizon like a wave of darkness, unstoppable and devouring the skies and earth. Before the black fog, islands and demon beasts appeared insignificantly small, like dust. Even flying beasts were engulfed by the fog from behind, their fates uncertain. Looking up, shadows of different figures hovered above the black fog, clothed distinctly, wielding different Dharma treasures. Some had glowing artifacts floating behind them, some rode fierce mounts, and others stood proudly atop, sword chi with their hands behind their backs. Each one was shadowed by a towering phantom 1,000 feet high, appearing like demon gods, their silhouettes a mirror of themselves. At first glance, there were endless towering demon phantoms of 1,000 feet high that could not be counted, creating an overwhelming sense of oppression. At this moment, the continent cultivators were plunged into dead silence. Everyone stunned as if struck by lightning, frozen in midair. Xiao Dai saw behind these 1,000-foot demon phantoms an even more terrifying presence. With legs walking forward, the phantoms unable to reach even the ankles of this mysterious existence. It was impossible to imagine the true size. Some tried to look sideways. Wherever the ocean spread, there stood demon phantoms, casting them into despair not only by the disparity in cultivation levels, but also the sheer numerical difference between friends and foes. "How can we win?" someone said with a bitter laugh. No one responded. Their courage faltered. Above the clouds, Nine-Finger Divine Lord and Wu Xing stood shoulder to shoulder, witnessing the entire continent surrounded by the great cold demon sect cultivators from all directions. There are so many. Even the divine exotic realm is here. Wu Xing clicked his tongue, sensing that the number of demon sect cultivators was no less than the divine exotic resentful ghosts. Most importantly, these demon cultivators' combined aura was astonishing, with many individual auras strong enough to make him wary. Nine-Finger Divine Lord took a deep breath and scanned the continent as if searching for something. With such commotion, Could the Saint World Holy King truly have reincarnated in this land? Wuxia couldn't help but ask. Nine-Finger Divine Lord looked into the distance and replied, "If the Holy Heart awakens, with the Holy King's capabilities, rising to power won't be difficult. But the Great Cold Demon Sect fears that the Holy Court might detect the aura of the Saint World Holy King." After hearing this, Wuxia found it to make sense, and he stepped forward. "What are you planning to do?" inquired Nine-Finger Divine Lord hastily. Without turning back, Wuxia strode forward through the air, raising his hand with a laugh. "Forgot to tell you, I'm the divine exotic Ghost King Wuxia. Wuxia is just a pseudonym." Nine-Finger Divine Lord frowned, but didn't get angry, just watched as Wuxia advanced. "Wuxia, return to your place at once." The voice of the Master of Divine Exotic Realm rang out, loud and clear. Wuxia accelerated immediately, but suddenly his face darkened. He looked up only to see an immensely large hand reaching out from behind the demon army, covering the sky and aiming to seize him. The size of this hand was beyond what words could describe. Wuxia was horrified to discover that he was frozen in place. "This is bad." Despair filled Wuxia's eyes. At that moment, a powerful sword light forcefully entered his field of vision, and immediately after, the terrifying giant hand disintegrated before him. Subconsciously glancing over, his eyes widened in shock. He saw a figure he would never forget for all eternity. It was Guin, who had utilized the 9 extremes yin-yang body back in the divine exotic realm. Guin, holding 2 swords covered in dark purple demonic qi, brushed past Wuxia. As his words hung in the air, Guin turned into a fleeting shadow, and in a flash, a streak of sword light appeared, boldly piercing through the distant black fog. Before Wuxia could react, a terrifying wave of energy struck. His mouth agape, he looked on in disbelief. As he watched, a streak of sword qi burst from within the demon army, cutting a swath through the 1,000-foot demon phantoms of the waste. The light of the sword qi stripped the entire world of color in an instant. The continent cultivators were dazzled into closing their eyes, the mortal spirits unable to glimpse this sword light. Above the clouds, Nine-Finger Divine Lord's face also transformed, his soul shaken by the impact. In his eyes, the demon phantoms perished, the black fog churned, and a sword light rapidly stretched, as if intent on splitting the very heavens and earth in two. In that moment, Nine-Finger Divine Lord, who had lived for 170,000 years, witnessed the strongest sword strike of his life. "Who are you?" A voice full of both shock and rage erupted, the tone laced with fear. Chapter 297. Guin takes action. The sword light between heaven and earth began to fade, and the voice of the mysterious great cultivator from the Great Cold Demon Sect still echoed over the ocean, awakening the continent cultivators who had not seen Guin's figure just now. Only Nine-Finger Divine Lord and stealing the 5 elements had seen clearly. But the immense sword intent made them think of one person. Sword Venerable Fudao. It's Sword Venerable Fudao. There's no mistake. It must be him. A mystic heart realm cultivator from the Supreme Sect exclaimed excitedly. He had also been to the heavenly repair platform and had experienced the sword intent within the words righteous path. Xiao Dai was equally excited, his eyes filled with frenzied anticipation. At this moment, he remembered the scene when Sword Venerable Fudao descended upon the 7 stars spirit realm. Stealing the 5 elements, who had narrowly escaped calamity, let out a sigh of relief, immediately retreated, and dared not approach the encroaching army of demonic shadows again. Guin stood atop the demon mist, sword in hand, with 1,000 zhang demonic shadows dissipating in all directions. But even more demonic shadows approached, encircling him. He even saw some demonic shadows standing tens of thousands of zhang tall and giant demons of indeterminate size. You have successfully seized 10,298 years of lifespan from Meng Qinglang, wandering immortal realm 7th floor. You have successfully seized 1,459 years of lifespan from Su Linxin, loose Immortal Realm 2nd floor. You have successfully seized 12,080 years of lifespan from Trueman Wuyun, wandering Immortal Realm 6th floor. Notification after notification continuously popped up before Gu An's eyes, but Guan didn't rush to make another move. Instead, he looked around. One had to say, the Great Cold Demon Sect's response was truly swift. As soon as he made a move, the remaining cultivators did not panic, but instead immediately arranged a formation. Their formation was highly profound, not only capable of being formed in an extremely short amount of time, but also containing powerful and mysterious forces. After the sword light vanished, in less than 3 breaths' time, the world suddenly changed, and in an instant, Guan found himself in the cosmic starscape, with rolling black mist under his feet, and still encircled by demonic shadows. The demonic shadows' feet held the Dharma treasures of the Great Cold Demon Sect cultivators. Accompanied by Gu An's arrival in the cosmic starscape, those titanic figures and even larger beings revealed their true forms. There were beasts as mighty as creation's god mountains, female cultivators who resembled fairies constantly scattering strange petals, and enormous birds with wingspans of 10,000 li circling overhead. The demon mist under Gu An's feet churned violently, like surging waves. Who are you exactly? If you do not reveal your identity, do not blame us for showing no mercy. The previous voice sounded again. This time, its tone was incomparably cold. After the formation was set up, he seemed to have regained his confidence. Guan looked up and saw, within the layers of encirclement above, in absolute darkness, a pair of gigantic eyes lurked, as if an unimaginable existence outside the universe was peering at him, filled with an oppressive feeling. Sword Venerable Jesuin, Carefree Primordial Immortal Realm, 8th floor, 780. For 50/830/000/880/000. An old monster who had lived for 780,000 years. However, killing this individual would only yield a little over 5,000 years of lifespan, which was too disappointing for Guan. As Sword Venerable Jizuan opened his eyes, for life-seizing immortals from the Carefree Primordial Immortal concurrently appeared. Fortunately, they had abundant lifespan, which improved Gu An's mood. This is the Great Cold Demon Sect's Luo Tian Star's Immortal Capturing Formation. Once this formation is completed, no matter how great your divine skills, it will be impossible for you to escape. The voice of Sword Venerable Jesuin rang out, majestic to the extreme. The other 4 Carefree Primordial Immortals took out their supreme treasures and dispersed in all directions. Once they stopped, the entire cosmic starscape rippled. Numerous rainbow lights emerged. These lights were not mere illusions, but were also condensing a mysterious force. Guan looked up at Sword Venerable Jesuin and asked, "Does the Great Cold Demon Sect have anyone stronger?" As these words were spoken, Sword Venerable Jesuin's gaze immediately changed, and all the cultivators of the Great Cold Demon Sect were scared. Their eyes filled with fear when they looked at him. Someone stronger? How could this person be so arrogant? However, due to Gu An's previous sword strike, no one dared to challenge him at this moment. All of them were on high alert. The face of life-seizing immortal turned extremely ugly, intuition telling him that the other party was not being arrogantly presumptuous. At this moment, he was filled with dread. Luckily, he wasn't rash, but instead gathered the strength of the Great Cold Demon Sect. Otherwise, he might have ended up with his soul scattered like his disciple Bai Hong. For a time, silence fell within the Luo Tian Star's Immortal Capturing Formation. It seems there's no one stronger? Truly disappointing. You're acting so recklessly. I thought you'd have more to back it up. Guan spoke again, and suddenly, he threw the Heavenly Residence sword out. Boom! With this sword strike, he swept above the black mist, annihilating the Great Cold Demon Sect cultivators one by one, and when the sword blade arrived in front of them, a layer of light burst forth around their bodies. but it was shattered as soon as it appeared, utterly failing to protect them. One sword pierced thousands of li, directly penetrating the Luo Tian star's immortal capturing formation and returning to reality. The continent cultivators hovering in the air only saw a sword light cutting through the vast expanse of black mist in front of them, making them even more nervous, unclear about the state of the battle within that black mist. After Gu and made his strike, Sword Venerable Jesuin immediately gave the command, "Kill." The great cold demon sect cultivators from all directions cast their spells. Various spells and divine skills formed a stream of rainbow colors charging towards Gu and raised his hand to grab, then retracted it, revealing an individual in his palm. Origin Heaven Capturing Hand. This was the inherent divine skill of the primordial chaos, supreme, holy skill. Today was the first time Gu and had used it. The person in his hand was Sword Venerable Jesuin, a white-robed elder. At this moment, Sword Venerable Jesuin's face was filled with fear and despair. Guin directly crushed him to dust. Then, taking up the Qinghong's sword, he began the slaughter. Within the continent, an endless stream of cultivators rushed to the edge. When they saw the ocean, they all changed color. The fearsome black mist seemed as if it could devour everything between heaven and earth, giving one the feeling of an impending disaster. Anyone who saw it would be afraid. The black mist surged violently, as if countless demons were raging within. The morale on the side of the continent collapsed completely, with no one willing to fight. What they didn't know was that within the black mist, a large number of great cold demon sect cultivators were rushing in the same direction. The cultivators of the great cold demon sect had received the message. Someone had launched an assault on one side. All warriors were to immediately reinforce the Luo Tian star's immortal capturing formation. Rolling thunderclouds covered the sky, enveloping the entire continent. The sound of thunder was oppressively heavy. In the demon land, within a subsect of the supreme sect, Yilan stood on a pavilion, looking up at the sky, tightly clutching the white spirit sword in her hand. She felt no anomaly from within the white spirit sword, but her heart would not be at peace. "I hope we can safely get through this calamity," Yilan muttered to herself, praying secretly. Although she saw no hope of longevity, she didn't want life to end like this. She had so many things unfinished, so many places unvisited. She had yet to fulfill her promise with her senior brother. How could she be resigned to death? Beneath the thunderclouds, Nine-Finger Divine Lord and Stealing the Five Elements stood shoulder to shoulder, unable to maintain composure, both unconsciously agape with faces full of shock. Not just them, but the continent cultivators felt the same. Newcomers slowed their flight speed due to the sights before them. Within the vast black mist, countless enormous demonic shadows were snuffed out, leaping out, and countless cultivators hovered, all attacking in the same direction, which glinted with sword light. Even though separated by a great distance, unable to see the specifics of the battle, everyone could sense a powerful sword intent. This was not a battle of evenly matched strength, but a massacre with a great disparity in power. The number of cultivators from the Great Cold Demon sect was vast, forming an ocean of people, and within their encirclement, Guin wielded dual swords casually, yet each sword could kill a large number of cultivators and demons. His strength deeply struck the Great Cold Demon sect. "No good. We are not his match. Damn. He's doing it on purpose, deliberately not using divine skills, and relying solely on sword chi to slaughter us. Even the Luo Tian star's immortal capturing formation has been broken by him. How could we have any chance of winning? Be careful. His sword is swinging this way. Retreat. Quick retreat." The world plunged into clamor and chaos. Each of Guan's sword strikes took not just life, but also the overall morale of the Great Cold Demon sect. Life-seizing Immortal dared not approach Guin, only able to use long-range divine skills. Giant hands resembling the clasping of fingers descended from the sky, pressing towards Guin, but were instantly shattered upon contact with him, having no effect. Guin strolled leisurely, walking above the black mist, each step followed by a sword swing as casually as if taking a walk, with no swordsmanship to speak of. Every time the great cold demon sect tried to form the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation, it would be dispersed by Gu An's sword chi. Guin looked at the notifications before him, struggling to contain the emotions in his heart. He was not killing for the sake of killing. He was enacting justice on behalf of the heavens. Suddenly, Guin stopped in his tracks, and as he did, all the great cold demon sect cultivators retreated, leaving 100 li radius around Guin where no one dared to tread. The cultivators of the great cold demon sect fell silent, all staring dead ahead at Gu, and life-seizing immortal gritted his teeth and said, "The sect leader will arrive soon. Don't panic, everyone." His voice reached the ears of every great cold demon sect cultivator. Yet these words did not boost their morale. "Don't panic." Gu An's voice rose, filled with sarcasm, as if he had heard the world's biggest joke. Before life-seizing immortal could speak, Guin suddenly vanished from the spot, frightening the cultivators of the great cold demon sect. Up there, a voice rose, laden with despair. Countless cultivators and demons all looked up, their eyes wide with astonishment. What they saw was a colossal figure whose height could not be judged by the naked eye, standing proudly above the clouds, showing only its upper body, an almost illusory sight. Even the 10,000 Zhang demonic shadows appeared tiny in front of this figure, who was none other than Guin himself. At that moment, all the cultivators of the great cold demon sect felt an overpowering suppression that rendered them immobile. Some of the highly cultivated cultivators of the demon sect unconsciously looked down, only to see the billowing black mist below give rise to a land ablaze with dark purple flames rushing towards them. Life-seizing immortal lowered his gaze, and his complexion drastically changed. What was that? A land on fire? No, it was unmistakably a hand large enough to grasp all of them. In the distance, nine-fingered divine lord, stealing the 5 elements, and the continent cultivators were all dumbfounded. At the edge of the ocean, a city was rapidly approaching, and it was none other than divine exotic city. Leah, standing atop a tower in the city, had his eyes wide open, trembling all over as he watched an immensely huge hand rise from within the infinite expanse of black mist. Even with his eyesight, he couldn't take in the entire hand. He had never imagined such a large hand could exist in this world. If there were hands of heaven and earth, surely it would be this one. Chapter 298. Breaking through a lifespan of 100 million years. I'm not dreaming, am I? Liam muttered to himself, questioning the divine, exotic, immortal spirit perched on his shoulder. The divine, exotic, immortal spirit also widened its eyes in shock, its mouth agape. From their perspective, the huge hand at the horizon of the sea seemed as large as the ocean itself. If not for the curved fingers, they could hardly tell it was a hand. It felt like it could grab an entire continent with ease. Leah recognized the demonic chi emanating from the gigantic hand as somewhat familiar. Wait, wasn't this the hand of the primordial ancestor? At that thought, a surge of blood rushed through Li Ya's body uncontrollably, exciting him to the extreme. At the same time, the entire continent's populace could see Gu An's figure, whose massive presence shook mountains and clouds on his path, a sight that overturned their understanding and imagination. In the Third Medicine Valley, thousands of disciples watched with their mouths agape. Xianxia also stepped out of his house, completely dumbfounded when he saw Gu An's towering figure. It was as if they were beholding the descent of a deity. What is that? It's Sword Venerable Fu Dao. It's the silhouette of Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Really? How can it be so large? Is it not an illusion? Many texts record that Sword Venerable Fu Dao perceives others using the demon shadow divine skill. I knew Sword Venerable Fu Dao wouldn't abandon us. A roar of cheers erupted across the continent. Though the demon shadow divine skill was terrifying, the thought of it representing Sword Venerable Fudao uplifted their spirits rather than causing fear. Since the fame of Sword Venerable Fudao, which righteous deed hadn't he done, and which person he killed wasn't among the evil. If it were a normal competition among sects, Sword Venerable Fudao wouldn't have intervened, otherwise Supreme Sect would have long become the foremost under heaven. Because of this, other sects respected Sword Venerable Fudao, acknowledging Supreme Sect's luck. In confrontations with Supreme Sect, they were wary of Sword Venerable Fudao, but they weren't afraid he'd harm them, as long as they didn't commit heinous acts. Since Sword Venerable Fudao appeared, many disciples had perished during Supreme Sect's expansion, yet Sword Venerable Fudao hadn't sought vengeance. The sects and clans that decided to stay were bustling with excitement, as if the spring festival had come early. While the continent was invigorated, the cultivators of the great cold demon sect fell into despair. They watched as Gu'an's fingers slowly rose, appearing like ancient colossal peaks ascending, creating an overwhelmingly impactful scene. Even Immortal Path realm cultivators watched in awe. The life-seizing immortal desperately mobilized his mana, but he couldn't move an inch, feeling as insignificant as an ant. How many years had it been? Ever since he entered the Nirvana realm, not to mention the carefree primordial immortal realm, he hadn't been so embarrassed. The other three carefree primordial immortals were in the same state, utterly immobile despite their full efforts, despair beyond common understanding. If they were so affected, not to mention cultivators of other realms, despair shrouded every heart. This hand had captured millions of the great cold demon sects, cultivators, and demons. Those arriving cultivators from the great cold demon sect, upon seeing this gigantic hand, fled in panic, throwing aside all their rules and consequences. Guan looked down at the great cold demon sect cultivators and the demons they brought within his palm. He also hesitated. Killing too many would weigh on his conscience, and he worried it might bring greater troubles. But remembering the countless lives Bai Hong had slaughtered, his heart hardened. Such a wicked sect, if it's to be extinguished, so be it. If even this act brought divine retribution, then Guan would question what heaven really stood for. Once Gu'an's thoughts cleared, he suddenly clenched his hand. His palm was so huge that a simple clench stirred up a terrifying storm, unleashing waves sweeping toward the horizon. The fierce winds assaulted divine exotic city, forcing it to activate its city protection array immediately. Leo watched as the protective barrier around divine exotic city violently distorted. He couldn't concern himself with the safety of the city as he looked into the distance, trembling. The sight of that mighty clenched fist was simply too magnificent. He even doubted whether immortal cultivation could really reach such a mighty level. He wondered whether the primordial ancestor was born an immortal, a true immortal, not merely a mortal who had cultivated into one. As Guan clenched, the heaven and earth fell silent. The terrifying oppression that had engulfed the continent and the surrounding seas was gone. Despite the rolling thunderclouds above, the masses felt as though they had emerged from the clouds into clear skies. You successfully seized 1,228 years of lifespan from Bai Lai, loose immortal realm, 7th layer. You successfully seized 493 years of lifespan from Qin Sushin, Nirvana realm, 9th layer. You successfully seized 58 years of lifespan from the Sei Crossing Old Immortal, Nirvana realm, 8th layer. You successfully seized 2,780 years of lifespan from Yunhai Tianjun, Wandering Immortal Realm, 5th layer. Alerts continuously popped up before Gu'an's eyes, and then he vanished, but his remaining image in the sky left the beings in awe. The black fog enveloping the sea swiftly dissipated, signifying the end of a massive calamity. Liu recovered his senses and quickly urged the divine exotic immortal spirit to head towards the mainland. In the distance, the master of divine exotic realm stood atop the thunderclouds, infinite divine exotic resentful ghosts behind him, all displaying faces of fear, many visibly trembling. Even degraded to divine exotic resentful ghosts, they still felt terror from the formidable being they had just witnessed. How could such an existence be defeated? Their fear was palpable, dreading the realm master might order an attack. Fortunately, as the formidable presence disappeared, the realm master did not issue the command. The realm master turned and said, "Back to the divine exotic realm." Gu'n's strength filled him with ecstatic relief, though he restrained his emotions vigorously. Aligning with Zhang Buku was a move well played. As he turned, an unprecedented hope filled his heart. Gu'en returned to Mystic Valley, feeling Xianxia's restless presence in the 8 Sina Caves. Her steps were brisk. He immediately headed towards the 8 Sina Caves. As Gu'en entered the cave pathway, Xianxia's footsteps abruptly stopped. Meanwhile, the lifespan alerts continued to appear before Gu'n's eyes. Not yet reaching the cave entrance, Gu'en halted, his attention captured by 2 alerts. For the first time, your lifespan has breached 1 billion years. Unlocking the Lifespan Samsara feature. Lifespan Samsara. Every 100 years, execute once. Undergoing reincarnation evolution. The evolution will reflect into reality, each use consuming 10 million years of lifespan. All memories acquired during the reincarnation will be transferred into your mind as if you experienced them personally. The duration of the reincarnation evolution is limitless, entirely dependent on your karmic choices during the evolution. Integration of real-world memories requires only an ancient hour. You successfully seized 487 years of lifespan from Zhu Changming, Mahayana Realm, 9th layer. Lifespan Samsara. Seeing the 10 million year lifespan cost made Gu'en feel it was a ripoff. But after reading the explanation, he suddenly thought it might not be so bad. If during the reincarnation evolution he lived long enough, the Taoist sorcery, divine skills, and understanding of the Tao achieved in one lifetime could potentially be worth more than 10 million years of lifespan. Of course, he might also not survive past 100 years, a huge loss of 10 million years of lifespan. This was a massive gamble. As Gu'en pondered, Jiang Qiong's voice floated over. "What are you standing there for? Come on already." On hearing this, Gu'en immediately strode forward. Tips indicating lifespan seizures continued. This series was a massive win. Gu'en had originally planned to use high-rank medical herbs from an outer world cave to push his lifespan over 1 billion years, but inevitably, some would push their luck too far. Folks get cocky, but if the heavens don't act, then he would. As Gu'en reached the base of the green vine tree, he couldn't help but laugh and cry. Jiang Qiong had dug a hole and placed a coffin inside. What was this? Planning to bury himself. Jiang Qiong pointed at the coffin. "Lie down here with me. It might help us avoid disaster." Gu'en pretended to be reluctant. "Is this really necessary?" Jiang Qiong glared, swiftly came forward, and pushed him. If he hadn't suppressed his Taoist gang primal energy, Jiang Qiong might have been obliterated. Gu'en had no choice but to lie down in the coffin. Jiang Qiong jumped in after him, forcibly pressing him down. Lying in the coffin, she swung her right hand, and the lid immediately covered them, plunging their vision into darkness. From the outside, the coffin began sinking into the earth, soon vanishing from sight. Confined in the cramped space of the coffin, Gu'en and Jiang Qiong squeezed together. In that moment, Gu'en's heart calmed. Massacring so many, even if all evil, his heart couldn't stay tranquil easily. Excessive killing bred malevolent energy, even a thrilling emotion of breaking free from moral shackles. He needed time to adjust. Now, lying in this darkness, his mood inexplicably steadied. Despite being in the dark, Gu'en could still see his lifespan alerts. Jiang Qiong's body began to squirm. Her arm was soft. She seemed to feel too squeezed, constantly pressing against Gu'en. Gu'en couldn't help asking, "If the calamity doesn't strike, how long must we hide here before we can leave?" Being squeezed in the coffin with Xianxia, he actually found it quite amusing, a completely novel experience for him. Hide for a few decades, at least until we get past the life-seizing Immortal's 100-year mark. That long? No, I need to go back. There are disciples in the valley. I can't abandon them. Humph, don't even think about it. Now that you've already lain down, don't think about leaving. As her words fell, Guin felt his left hand grasped by hers. Her hand was cold, like a corpse's. Guin tried to break free, but she held on tightly. Only after all the lifespan alerts had settled did Guin come back to his senses. He hadn't checked his lifespan yet, planning to later enjoy the moment of unveiling his lifespan. He spoke up. It's a bit uncomfortable squeezing like this, don't you think? Squeezing like this for decades. I'm afraid I might die. Xianxia didn't respond, but began to shift her body. Guin stiffened instantly. Xianxia actually lay on top of him, face to face. In the darkness, Guin distinctly felt her breath was a bit agitated, though faint, not escaping his senses. Suddenly, Xianxia's face pressed against Guin's chest, and he could feel one of her legs rubbing against his shin. This is bad. Things have gone too far. Guin fake coughed. Why are you so heavy? Xianxia's breathing hitched. Then Guin felt a hand land on his waist, fingers pinching his flesh. Chapter 299. Terrifying Lifespan. Kid, do you truly not know how to speak, or are you purposely trying to irritate me? In the darkness, Xianxia's voice resounded, somewhat grinding her teeth in frustration, but her hand did not forcefully pinch Guin. It was merely a warning. Guin, of course, had intentionally disrupted the atmosphere. He feigned a cough and began asking Xianxia what she would like to do after the disaster was over. Xianxia fell into silence, her limbs ceasing to move as she started to contemplate the question seriously. In truth, she had always been unclear about what she really wanted to do. She had done many things to become stronger, but when the apocalyptic disaster arrived, she felt that her actions were meaningless. Guin did not disturb her, allowing her to think it over. However, the moment the silence settled, his mind began to wander. Pinned down by Xianxia, Guin could feel every part of her body pressing against him. How could he remain calm? At that moment, the plots of Green Hero Travelogue, Supreme Secret Records, Black Heroes Travelogue, and many others flashed through his mind. Suddenly, he felt Xianxia tremble slightly. He hurriedly shifted his thoughts to ponder what exactly lifespan samsara was. As his thoughts shifted, Xianxia calmed down. She spoke up, if we truly can survive this catastrophe, then he'll focus on developing the Juhua sect. I won't wander around anymore. I feel like all these years of running about haven't really counted for much. That's good, Guin replied, to avoid any dangers. Xianxia suddenly stretched out her hand, hugged Guin tightly, and whispered softly, the calamity of the ephemeris sect left me without any relatives. You're now the only person I care about. Back when you first entered the 8 Sina caves, I was considering whether to kill you or not. Who would have thought that after so many years, you would become so important to me? Hearing this, Guin stiffened slightly and replied helplessly, is it that serious? I haven't been all that good to you. On the contrary, you've taught me quite a few spells. Setting aside the matter of sword Venerable Fudao supporting Xianxia, Guin genuinely felt that his outward contributions to Xianxia paled in comparison to what she had offered him. Many spells Xianxia taught him, he still used to this day. She had also given him magic artifacts and heavenly treasures. How can you say you haven't been good to me? You've managed the 8 Sina caves very well, and you've never betrayed me. Every time I come back, you've taken good care of me. Affection isn't entirely about contributions. If you were stronger, you would definitely treat me even better. I understand that. And I felt right from our first meeting that you had the ability to kill me. You hit it well, but I knew not only that you didn't kill me, but also that you were obedient to me. Listening to Xianxia, Guin suddenly didn't know what to say. Of course, you rascal. You are good to everyone. Everyone in the valley praises you. Xianxia suddenly snorted. Hearing this, Guan immediately said, "That's what makes me a scary talent, being good to everybody, making it hard to interpret my thoughts." "Yes, but you never ask others for returns, which means you genuinely care for those around you and aren't aiming for anything. Stop undermining yourself. I can feel whether you're genuine or not. Pretense cannot last long," Xianxia said softly. Guan, seemingly startled, said, "You're not thinking of exchanging vows, are you? That won't work. My junior sister and I plan to get married in the last 100 years of our lives." Xianxia laughed and said, "The last 100 years? What if one of you lives longer?" "Whoever lives longer, it's still the same path to go down. The pursuit of immortal cultivation isn't about enduring love, but about eternal life. You certainly see it clearly." "Yes, so don't harbor any improper thoughts about me." "Why can't I?" At the Thousand Autumn Pavilion, it's common for one person to have multiple Taoist friends, and female cultivators can have many Taoist friends too, as long as she is strong enough. Now I am stronger than you, and you can't escape my grasp unless one day your cultivation surpasses mine," Xianxia said proudly, her hand catching Gu An's face as she spoke. She suddenly began her offensive. "You demon cultivator, faking refuge from the calamity and actually abusing me. You can scream all you want now, it's useless. Be careful, I won't be nice. Come on, seeing your cultivation, I'm too lazy to immobilize you. I just like seeing you struggle. Don't worry, it'll be gentle." Xianxia laughed very proudly, grabbing Gu N's wrist with her hands, pinning him down. Then, Guan felt something soft press on his face, beginning to explore around. Not good. This guy's gone wild. A thought crossed Gu N's mind, and the earth suddenly trembled. Xianxia immediately stopped, not daring to move. Guan breathed a sigh of relief, but just then, Xianxia suddenly launched a sneak attack, catching him off guard. "Wait, it seems the disaster is over," Guan suddenly said. "How can you be sure?" Xianxia questioned. "Before finding you, I saw Sword Venerable Fudao make a move." "Oh, then you still came. It seems you also expected something to happen between us. I just saw you were prepared and didn't want to waste our time. Let's go out and see." "Is that so? Really, let's go up. I'll think about it." Boom! Beneath the green vine tree, the earth stirred, and a coffin rose, its lid popping open, and Guan immediately leaped out, then straightened his clothes. "Nearly lost my virginity. I can't let the over 200 years' worth of my preserved virginity be breached." Guan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Mouth is okay, but can't leak vital energy. Xianxia slowly climbed out of the coffin, her hair slightly disheveled, her clothes not neat. She raised her eyes to look at Guan, giving him a seductive smile that caused him to quickly turn his head. "We should stop calling me Martial Master. After all, I forcefully took Cheng Xiandan as a disciple, and Cheng Xiandan took you with ulterior motives, so it's not a real lineage. No, you brat never even call me Martial Master. Really, all men are the same. It's just that you kid are reluctant yet compliant, guarding against something," Xianxia said, glaring at Guan Gu, and dropped a sentence and left. "I'm going to check the situation." He immediately slipped away. Xianxia went to the edge of the pit. Watching his retreating back, she licked her lips as if savoring something. When Guan returned to the Third Medicine Valley, the valley was still bustling with activity. Stealing the 5 elements and 9-finger Divine Lord had also come back, standing together with Xianxia, separated by a restriction, discussing the formidable power of Sword Venerable Fudao, unable to contain their emotions. To suppress the entire Great Cold Demon sect with one hand was too exaggerated. It subverted everyone's understanding. For decades, the power of the Great Cold Demon sect had been deeply rooted in people's hearts. Only because of understanding the terror of the Great Cold Demon sect did everyone realize how incredibly powerful Sword Venerable Fudao was. Guan looked up and saw a figure hovering above the great heavenly spirit land, watching the continent where Guan was. the ninth layer of the carefree, immortal realm. Although only one small realm higher than the Sword Venerable, the presence far surpassed the Sword Venerable, the gap enormous. Presumably, he was the master of the great cold demon sect. At this moment, this master only dared to watch from a distance, not daring to come down. Guin also saw those fleeing cultivators of the great cold demon sect disperse like monkeys scattering from a fallen tree, already completely devoid of will to fight. He did not continue to pursue the kill, one reason being that the remaining cultivators were not as powerful as those he had suppressed, and another being he felt many presences approaching, even the presence of divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Yes, definitely the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. However, the person did not come with malice, and the direction was exactly where the Holy Land of Holy Court was located. Now that the Holy Court had appeared, it would not be appropriate for him to continue the chase. Next, it would be seen what stance the Holy Court took. Guin brought up his attribute panel. Name, Guin, lifespan, 210/790, 407, 832. Physique, primordial karmic body, cultivation level, divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. Ninth layer, 790 million years of lifespan. Guin suddenly felt like cursing. That was too awesome. The guilt from the killing faded instantly. Besides, he had not killed indiscriminately. He was executing justice on heaven's behalf, ultimately for the people. Finally, he could fully upgrade. Guin grinned. Very close to 1 billion now. Should he wait a bit longer? Forget it. Damn it. Just 100 million years. He had to wait a long time. How much longer for the remaining 200 million years? Look for a chance to break through. And it was a comprehensive upgrade. Heart surging with excitement. Guin even felt like trying out a 10 million year lifespan samsara just to see what it was. He walked towards the pavilion clusters, shouting with mana. Today, to thank Sword Venerable Fudao for resolving the calamity. Let's celebrate tonight. Consider a holiday. Deacons get moving. His voice spread throughout Medicine Valley. Achieving this feat with core formation realm cultivation was not difficult, and soon, various cheers rose within the valley. When Guin reached his own pavilion, Xiaoyu came up to him, indicating with her eyes. They both went upstairs and closed the door. I think Sword Venerable Fudao's silhouette seemed familiar, Xiaoyu said seriously, causing Guin's heart to tremble. What did that mean? Could she have linked it to me? Guin immediately became uneasy. A supreme power who suppressed the great cold demon sect, spooked by a core formation realm cultivator. He asked with a frown, could it be that Sword Venerable Fudao originates from the Ji family? Xiaoyu shook her head. No, I saw him in a dream. It must have been a scene from past life. Hearing this, Guin breathed a sigh of relief, but his brows furrowed even deeper. Today's battle was an eye-opener. I suddenly feel that I can't die too early in this life. I need to follow in the footsteps of Sword Venerable Fudao. Xiaoyu spoke again, her face full of admiration. Chase after Sword Venerable Fudao? He was divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. Ninth layer. Guin didn't discourage Xiaoyu. What if she really could achieve it? He started motivating Xiaoyu. They chatted for a while before Xiaoyu finally left. But when she reached the door, she stopped, turned back to look at Guin, and said, the scent of a woman on you is stronger now. It's still the same woman as last time. You two must have entangled a bit, although you don't seem to have leaked any essence. After that, she pushed the door open and left without closing it. Guin stood there puzzled. How did she figure that out? What kind of divine skill was that? Or was it a talent? Guin didn't dwell on it. Living another life, he planned to be carefree and at ease. Why worry too much? Just follow his heart. He started waiting for that divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to leave, as long as the person didn't mess around. And once they left, he would find a place to break through. Chapter 300. 7 Divine Golden Bodies. Primordial ultimate body, the mysterious divine immortal of wondrous Dharma, wandered in this mortal world region. never stepping onto the continent where Guan was located. A day and a night later, he left. Starting from the second day, rumors about the great cold demon sect being annihilated single-handedly by Sword Venerable Fudao spread like a hurricane across the seas, shocking the countless beings that were fleeing. Their first reaction was disbelief, as the news sounded too preposterous. The world was in an uproar, and within the supreme sect, it was a time of celebration, with dazzling lights and decoration everywhere. Everyone was singing praises of Sword Venerable Fudao's magnificent feats and mighty power. This time, Sword Venerable Fudao's rescue efforts had a wider reach than ever before. How could they not be proud? They were unclear if there truly were immortals who cared for the common folk in this world. But at least in their hearts, Sword Venerable Fudao was an immortal who brought salvation to all living beings. The day after the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma left, Guan quietly departed from the continent. He headed south, moving away from the mortal world region where the supreme sect was located. Eventually, he arrived at a desolate sea, where the number of beings was extremely sparse. Whether deep within the sea or above its surface, numerous lost souls and wild ghosts floated about. The sky above this place was covered with dense, oppressive clouds, but the spiritual energy here was quite abundant. After surveying the area with his divine sense, Guan discovered an island deep within the ocean guarded by powerful restrictions. If he were to break through forcefully, he would undoubtedly alert the entity within. He speculated that a carefree, primordial immortal might be hiding inside, because, although the restrictions were strong, he felt it wouldn't be difficult to break through if he wanted. No wonder the spiritual energy was so abundant here, yet there were so few beings. It turns out a malevolent deity was hidden within. Guan landed on an uninhabited, isolated island and immediately activated the lifespan barrier. 790 million years of lifespan. The more he looked at it, the more invigorating it felt. He had never been so affluent before. Guan sat cross-legged in front of a withered tree, looking at his attribute panel, chuckling to himself. First, he would enjoy the moment for a while longer. After a good while, Guan then reined in his emotions and decided to give lifespan samsara a try. He would test the waters with 10 million years. If this function turned out to be ineffective, he would dismiss it forever, just like the lifespan deduction he had initiated before. You have spent 10 million years of lifespan to trigger one reincarnation evolution, beginning connection to Tao rules. Searching for reincarnation heaven and earth, you have the following heaven and earth options. Choose any one. 1. Great Heavenly Spirit Land. 2. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. 3. The Great Multiverse, HM. There's even a Great Heavenly Spirit Land. Guan thought if the reincarnation evolution reflected reality, could it be that it's not just memory fusion, but it could also affect reality itself? He wasn't sure, so after some thought, he decided not to choose the Great Heavenly Spirit Land to avoid any potential issues. He was drawn to the dark Great Heaven and Earth. The name sounded well suited for his life-stealing ability. Since it was reincarnation evolution, perhaps he would still possess his current golden finger. That's the one. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. You choose to reincarnate into the dark Great Heaven and Earth. Considering that the Tao rules of this world cannot conceal your talent, you will retain the life-stealing ability, but cannot unlock stage-specific functions. Reincarnation evolution begins. In the first year, you were born in a village in the East Profound Domain, and your parents named you Chulu at the age of 7. You accidentally pulled up a spirit grass in the mountains, stealing 8 years of lifespan, marking a turning point in your destiny. At the age of 8, you took an immortal cultivator as a master and traveled the world with him. At 15, you encountered a cultivator robbery. To protect you, your master died. You harbored a grudge, hid in the mountains, and began to accumulate lifespan. By 18, you evolved your cultivation level to the nascent soul realm through lifespan evolution, and you began your revenge. At 19, you infiltrated the residence of your enemies, killing everyone until only one person remained, a girl. Seeing her fearful demeanor, You felt some reluctance and struggled internally. Do you choose to execute her? The prompt stopped here. Guin paused for a moment, choosing not to execute her. Joking aside, with his life-stealing ability, he certainly wouldn't be hunted by this girl. You spare the girl, Cheng Jialan, and resumed your path of immortal cultivation. Seeing this prompt, Guin smiled. This girl, like his junior sister, also had Lan in her name. The previous prompts had no names. It seemed the deceased don't get named unless they survive. Hold on, his parents and master were initially alive as well, but they were not named. He suddenly had a bad feeling. Could it be that this Cheng Jialan would live a long time? At 20, you joined the Tai sect, and with your exceptional cultivation level and talent, you became a direct disciple. Making a name for yourself within the sect, at 21, you utilized the lifespan deduction cultivation technique to master the Seven Hearts technique. At 22, jealous of you, the sect leader's son ambushed you while you were on a mission, surrounding you with his people. You executed all his followers, leaving only the sect leader's son alive. He knelt before you, begging for mercy, and you hesitated. Do you choose to execute him? Kill. Guin didn't hesitate, and the prompt continued to appear. Killing men and sparing women? Seems like there's something wrong with the standard. Guin criticized himself internally. Subsequently, the him and the reincarnation returned to the Tai sect, faced continuous strife and enmity, and he always chose to kill, since it was others who provoked him. Killing led to the unveiling of secrets, and he was pursued by the Tai sect and even placed on a wanted list. After that, almost every year, he was embroiled in battles, sometimes several times within a year. Once, Guin chose to save a wounded cultivator he encountered by chance, only for that person to summon a large group of cultivators to ambush him, intending to seize the magic artifact in his possession. Angered, Guin's killing intent intensified. One betrayal after another, jealousy, and feuds kept unfolding. What an impressive turn of events. Indeed, this was the dark, great heaven and earth, and the world seemed excessively grim. Over the first 50 years, Guin encountered not a single kind-hearted cultivator. He was fighting alone the entire time. The most distressing part for him was that, in order to get back at him, his enemies extracted the souls of his family still in the mountain village and refined them into resentful ghosts to be embedded in ghost devices. Furious, Guin became even more ruthless in his subsequent choices, always responding to killing with killing. His lifespan accumulated rapidly, and by 50, he had reached the cultivation level of loose immortal realm, becoming the East Profound Domain's killing god. At the age of 65, you encountered the girl you once spared, Cheng Jialan. She had now become a disciple of the Blue Sky Holy Sect, a renowned genius. She recognized you and was very grateful. You were moved by her attitude. At 66, pursued by Cheng Jialan, you both became Taoist friends. At 67, Cheng Jialan gave birth to a son and a daughter for you, and you cherished her even more. At 68, while you're cultivating, a wandering, carefree, primordial immortal from the Blue Sky Holy Sect descended. He was known as the Black Profound Emperor and crushed you to death. Reincarnation ends what? It's over already? Guin nearly spit blood. For 10 million years of lifespan, he only got 68 years of life? Black Profound Emperor. Okay, very good. Primordial Ultimate Body and Primordial Karmic Body, although both named after Primordial, had a huge disparity. By reaching Ultimate Body, one could easily see through heaven and earth rules as well as cause and effect, exerting absolute suppression over the primordial body type. Although Guin had not yet encountered a primordial body type, he felt that primordial must exist. After all, it was achieved through the elevation of his own body type, indicating that if the mortals of the great heavenly spirit land traced back their ancestry, they might very well be linked to primordial. He just did not know where primordial was located. As Guin devoured the spiritual energy, the silent and gloomy sea stirred into a tempest, as a powerful divine sense swept across the sea. Unfortunately, no matter how much it searched, it could not find Guin. An ancient hour later, Guin finally opened his eyes, and his physique was completely transformed into a primordial ultimate body. His current strength had reached a terrifying level, and the sensation of power was exceedingly delightful. He even wanted to find someone to test his newfound strength against. Fortunately, he resisted the urge. Cannot drift away. Chu Lu was too overconfident, killing throughout his path, only to be crushed to death by a cultivator several major realms above. Guin looked at the cultivation technique section. Primordial chaos, supreme, holy skill, and all things form and energy art were each worth 20 million years of lifespan. The reason he only used 20 million years of lifespan was that he started to covet the function that would unlock with 1 billion years of lifespan. Chapter 301. Breakthrough to the 9th layer of the Tao Void Mysterious Immortal Realm. In the next ancient hour, Guin enhanced the primordial chaos of supreme holy skill to the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, and yet 20 million years of lifespan only advanced him by 1 level, luckily reaching the peak of perfection. At the same time, he awakened the divine skill, unlimited avatars. Every element of the 5 elements spiritual energy could turn into an avatar. This divine skill's combat power wasn't particularly outstanding as it manifested in quantity, since the 5 elements spiritual energy existed everywhere. He continued to advance. The all things form and energy art was elevated to the chaotic myriad forms freedom technique, and then further to the Tao Void mysterious divine thought skill. Similarly costing 20 million years of lifespan, no new divine skills were awakened, but the technique itself was a divine skill. The Tao Void mysterious divine thought skill, once mastered, would not be restricted by rules. With a mere thought, he could suppress cultivation level, breath, appearance, and everything else, making them unperceivable to others. With this technique, there was no need for Guin to use transformation techniques. Of course, what he valued most was its marvelous effect in hiding cultivation level and breath. In the reincarnation evolution, Chu Lu died quickly exactly because he lacked this technique. Of course, trusting Cheng Jialan also played a part. After Guin passed on the Tao Void mysterious divine thought skill, another ancient hour had passed. Next was the promotion of the boundless heaven-constricting sword to the eternal boundless divine sword. The limitless freedom step was finally elevated to the stepping path of Age's step, a technique that allowed time reversal within a specific range of each footstep, transforming all things from death to life, from life to null. Of course, this stepping technique couldn't aid in achieving immortality since it had limitations and was primarily used for combat. The 9 extremes, yin-yang body was finally advanced to the Tao of transcending void body. Guin also enhanced the soul-capturing skill, promoting it to the great imprisoned soul immortal technique, consuming 5 million years of lifespan. The previous 3 ultimate skills and divine skills each consumed 20 million years of lifespan, totaling 65 million years of lifespan. Adding the physique and cultivation technique, Guin had already spent 105 million years of lifespan. The consumption from the lifespan barrier was also a significant figure. Even without breaking through, he felt invincible at this moment. But he needed to be cautious. He must break through. Guin reopened the attribute panel, focusing his gaze on the cultivation level column. At this moment, the entire ocean was experiencing a violent storm, with endless towering waves as the divine sense of a carefree, primordial immortal frantically scanned the area. Guin didn't mind since the area was mostly inhabited by lost souls and wild ghosts who wandered the mortal world, suffering from the rejection of the heaven and earth rules. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to invest 5 million years of his lifespan. It was uncertain whether the early investment of 100 million years of lifespan could erase the gap in the difficulty of cultivation between the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma and higher realms. Yu practiced qi absorption cultivation for 30,000 years, forcefully attempting to assault the Tao void, mysterious, immortal realm with the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, starting the tribulation crossing. You didn't endure the six realms' destiny ultimate void tribulation, failing the tribulation. 30,000 years for one tribulation crossing. Guan was thrilled, knowing that previously, when he attempted to reach the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, it took 60,000 years for one chance to cross the tribulation. However, even more surprising events occurred. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 300,000 years. You endured the six realms' destiny ultimate void tribulation with the forceful use of the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, and succeeded in the tribulation crossing, advancing your cultivation level to the first layer of the Tao void, mysterious, immortal realm. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 500,000 years, advancing your cultivation level to the second layer of the Tao void, mysterious, immortal realm. 10 successful crossings. I'm really fucking strong. Guan was ecstatic, but as he looked further, his smile gradually faded. The time required for each level in the Tao void, mysterious, immortal realm kept increasing. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 4 million years, advancing your cultivation level to the 8th layer of the Tao void, mysterious, immortal realm. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 4.7 million years, advancing your cultivation level to the 9th layer of the Tao void, mysterious, immortal realm. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 5 million years, forcefully assailing the divine thought, true immortal realm with the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, starting the tribulation crossing. You didn't endure the heavenly Tao 49 mysterious void tribulation, failing the tribulation. That's good. Reaching the 9th layer of the Tao void, mysterious, immortal realm in 5 million years was an unexpectedly pleasant surprise. But what's after was shocking, an attempt of tribulation every 300,000 years. If following the old pattern, failing 100 times would mean 30 million years of lifespan. Chapter 302. Absolutely not intoxicating. Under the cloak of night, the vast ocean was riddled with shadows of great cultivators flitting by, and many sea monsters leaped out of the water, making the night all the more terrifying. The isolated island, where Guan was situated, was surrounded by terrifying waves, which could engulf it at any moment. Yet, he was still waiting for the breakthrough to conclude. The amount of spiritual energy needed for each minor realm within the Tao void, mysterious, immortal realm far exceeded that for breakthroughs in previous major realms. Guan had been observing the outside world, for he wanted to know the impact of this breakthrough on the great heavenly spirit land. By now, the range of the descending spiritual energy had become enormously exaggerated. However, in comparison to the entire great heavenly spirit land, it was still not sufficient to shake the whole. The great heavenly spirit land was far too vast. Even though Guan could now see beyond the heavens, he could not overlook the vastness within the great heavenly spirit land. As time elapsed, more and more great cultivators arrived to protect the oceans from all corners, and even sects that Guan previously dared not spy upon sent out great cultivators. Even the dynasty populated entirely by heavenly spirit life forms had sent people out. Guan suddenly discovered an interesting point. The immortal spirit dynasty and the holy court were situated on opposite sides of the great heavenly spirit land, as distant from each other as possible, giving a clear demarcation. He would have to find an opportunity to learn about the immortal spirit dynasty from Baizia next time. Guan saw that apart from this stretch of the ocean, the continents and islands and other seas were all protected by great cultivators, even floating in the air near the continent where the supreme sect was located, holding back the waves. The Holy Court's efficiency was truly formidable. It could offer swift protection to the common people within a short period of time, truly worthy of its name. It is worth mentioning that the carefree primordial immortal of this ocean region had been the target of a manhunt. He was besieged by several other carefree primordial immortals and had already fled to outer heaven. Guin couldn't help but mourn him silently. My sin, my sin. Although the other party became involved because of him, Guin had no choice. He had to break through. Going anywhere would attract attention. Going to outer heaven would attract at least those at the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, which would be far too dangerous. However, considering the current commotion, Guin's next breakthrough would have to take place outside of heaven. Although outer heaven was dangerous, Dao Void Mysterious Immortal was not weak. Guin had already seen the words Divine Thought, True Immortal, and had a vast lifespan. He couldn't feel at ease without reaching the 9th layer of Divine Thought, True Immortal. He would have to control his next breakthrough a bit more. Reaching the 9th layer, he would have to restrain himself and not prematurely peer into the name of the next realm, lest his heart itch with curiosity. Guin thought silently to himself. The anomalies above the ocean had not affected outer heaven. The moon set and the sun rose. When morning arrived, the turmoil of spiritual energy over the ocean gradually returned to calm. Guin had finally reached the 9th level of Dao Void Mysterious Immortal. He slowly opened his eyes, and the golden patterns on his forehead shone with an illusory, vertical golden eye. The pupil of the primordial divine eye was gradually turning black, then deep gray, making this vertical eye all the more terrifying and oppressive. With a thought, Guin caused the primordial divine eye to disappear. He slowly stood up. Without taking a step, his figure vanished on the spot from the island. Almost instantaneously, he arrived within the Ninshu cave of Heavenly Phoenix Mountain. Tian Yaoer, Tian Qing, and Tian Bai were all immersed in cultivation. The cave was quiet, save for the sound of dripping water, exuding a profound serenity. Guin clapped his hands, and the 3 demons awoke. They quickly came out of the house, and upon seeing Guin, were overjoyed and rushed to meet him. Master, what exactly happened outside these past 2 days? Yes, indeed, such a terrifying aura came through. Master, are you all right? The 3 demons chattered excitedly, their questions buzzing with enthusiasm. Guin felt a pang of guilt. He should have visited sooner. Instead, he had let them worry for so long. Come on, let's go to the outer world cave, Guin called out, then took the 3 demons away with him. Along the way, the 3 demons talked incessantly, and Guin did not hide anything from them, recounting the calamities they encountered outside. Divine exotic resentful ghosts, divine exotic ghost kings, the great cold demon sect, the heavenly fire catastrophe, and more. All of these stories made them tremble with fear. But hearing from Guin that the calamity had passed, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. They began to wonder who had resolved the calamity. Guin said even he wasn't sure. When they arrived at the outer world cave, Guin raised his hand. Countless storage bags, storage rings, and storage Dharma artifacts flew out of his sleeves and piled up on the open ground. The 3 demons were stunned. Tian Yaoer couldn't help but ask, "Why are there so many?" Guin didn't answer. After piling the collected storage Dharma artifacts into a mountain, he swept over them with his divine sense, dispelling all restrictions. In an instant, he obliterated anything that might be harmful. I entrust these to you. At 50, after 5 years of investigation, you found that the power that slaughtered the Shao family was the Leaf family from the East Profound Domain. You left the Luoqing sect alone to rush to the East Profound Domain. Seeing the words East Profound Domain, Guin secretly felt that something was amiss. Why, out of nowhere was his family destroyed again? Speaking of which, Guin in this life also had no relatives living alone in the G family mansion. Could this be fate? At 60, you stormed the secret realm assessment of the East Profound Saint Mansion, swept through the geniuses of East Profound Domain, and became renowned throughout the world. At 70, you cultivated the heavenly gang holy body in the East Profound Saint Mansion. The mansion master favored you greatly, wishing to betroth his youngest daughter to you, whether you accept. Do not accept. You refused the mansion master's goodwill. He then took you as a disciple, and you received great cultivation resources from the East Profound Saint Mansion. Guan smiled when he saw this. That's more like it. The following life was filled with various cultivations. Xianxia continually enhanced his physique, cultivation technique, and divine skills. His choices were limited, focusing on only one method of each type. Years swiftly passed. 137. You participated in the holy competitions of the 5 domains. With an overwhelmingly dominant appearance, you claimed the title of the strongest prodigy of the era, and the name of the heavenly gang holy body spread across the great heaven and earth. At 138, you encountered a cultivator from the Li family during an externship. Due to a deep-seated hatred, you erupted into conflict with the Li family, encountering a mysterious carefree primordial immortal who intervened and nearly killed you. Fortunately, a cultivator named Hanging Pot saved you when you were severely injured. 139. Before your injuries fully healed, the Li family attacked again, vowing to annihilate you. Hanging Pot consumed his true yuan, using a great divine power to shift you and his children into a space-time rift. The 3 of you fell into the Dark Continent. At 140, Hanging Pot's son couldn't withstand the invasion of dark powers, ultimately perishing, his soul turning into a dark undead and disappearing. And you took his sister to search for him. 142. The 2 of you failed to escape the Dark Continent. Hanging Pot's daughter also turned into a dark undead. You, in rage, began slaughtering the dark undead of the Dark Continent. At 143, you encountered the Black Profound Emperor from the Tao Void mysterious immortal realm, who extinguished your soul. Reincarnation ends. What? Damn Black Profound Emperor again. How did he reach the Tao Void mysterious immortal realm this time? Guan's eyes widened, his anger uncontainable. If the Black Profound Emperor had the ability to anticipate lifespan, he would have already sensed the intense hostility from Guan. This guy had been squatting on him for 2 lifetimes. How could he bear it? Guan immediately vanished inside the room and teleported to the ocean floor of another world. Then he activated the lifespan barrier. A surge of vast memories rushed into his mind. An hour later, Guan opened his eyes, his face showing complex emotions. Xianxia's life was more splendid than Chu Lu's, advancing triumphantly, enjoying life fiercely with gratitude and resentment, possessing the fame of the strongest talent of the contemporary era, and he also encountered many beautiful women. Regrettably, he still died. In his memories, Guan learned about the horrors of the Dark Continent, which was even larger than the entire great heavenly spirit land. Impossible to fly to the outer heaven, the world dim and vast, as if never able to escape, and a mysterious power called Dark Force devouring him. If not for the sufficiently powerful heavenly gang holy body, Xianxia might not have lasted until the day he met the Black Profound Emperor. It must be said, the Tao Void mysterious immortal realm Black Profound Emperor was truly terrifying. Guan not only possessed memories, but could also deeply experience the feelings of the time. When the Black Profound Emperor killed him, he seemed to deliberately preserve his flesh. The thought of his body being used by the Black Profound Emperor really irked Guan. He also did not know where the Dark Continent was, whether the timing could match up, and if they met, if the opponent cultivation was not as good as his, he must make the Black Profound Emperor truly feel despair. The second reincarnation evolution ended at only 143 years old, which was quite annoying. However, the gain was greater than last time. Although the heavenly gang holy body was not as good as his primordial ultimate body, he could pass it on to his disciples in the future. The real gain was Xianxia's will. Xianxia cultivated a kind of fighting will. The more severe the injury, the stronger the burst of strength, capable of sweeping all opponents of the same realm, and even had a chance to counterkill higher realm opponents. Of course, for Guin, the main use of the fighting will was manifested in crossing the tribulation. With this will, would his evolutionary practice in crossing the tribulation be easier? Guin felt deeply and pondered whether he, in the Tao void, mysterious, immortal realm, was stronger than the Black Profound Emperor. With his whole Bodis ultimate skills, he really wanted to try challenging the Black Profound Emperor. He then disappeared from the seabed, returning to the attic of the Third Medicine Valley. Although merging memories caused some disturbance, it wasn't as significant as his previous breakthrough. Guin sat on a chair, suddenly feeling like trying again. He couldn't pick the Dark Continent next time. There was no need to stubbornly confront the Black Profound Emperor. Forget it. Bad luck. In the reincarnation evolution, Guin could only make significant choices. He couldn't control how his evolving self specifically acted, meaning reincarnation evolution was unknown. Since it was unknown, it needed to be mystical. Moreover, Guin still needed to break through. He couldn't get overexcited and delay his breakthrough. Guin took out the green hero travelogue and flipped through a few pages, completely shifting his thoughts. This book is truly incredible. Even if Xianxia died now, with this book in Guin's heart, he was a saint. The news of the great cold demon sect being wiped out by Sword Venerable Fudao spread wildly for a long time, making Sword Venerable Fudao's fame spread even wider. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed, and time came to the end of the year. Winter snow covered the vast heaven and earth. Guin was writing a book in the attic, recording all the Taoist sorcery and ultimate skills practiced by Chu Lu and Xianxia in his lifetime into a secret book, not wishing to immediately disseminate it, but just writing for fun. If it could prove useful later, he could directly bring it out. He suddenly sensed something, raised an eyebrow, then put down his pen and vanished inside the room. Far away on the ocean, Wuxia lay on a large gourd, the gourd soaring among the clouds, his legs crossed, looking very stylish. He sensed an aura and immediately opened his eyes, leaping up. Then he saw a figure swiftly approaching, his face breaking into a surprised smile. It was Meng Lang, whom he wanted to see. Guin quickly flew in front of Wuxia and greeted with a fist and palm salute. Taoist friend Bai, didn't expect to meet you here. Wuxia frankly stated his purpose, then greeted him back, smiling. Taoist friend Meng, long time no see. Are you well? Have you been affected by the great cold demon sect? He had already flown into the area endangered by the great cold demon sect. Of course, this was just the peripheral region, so Guin dared to meet him. No, I wasn't here at the time. I only came back after hearing that the great cold demon sect was extinguished. Guin shook his head. Doing well? Quite good. Just broke through to the 9th layer of the Tao void, mysterious, immortal realm. Wuxia invited Guin onto the gourd, and he unceremoniously joined. The two began discussing the great cold demon sect and Sword Venerable Fudao. Wuxia was shocked by this matter. He didn't expect such a big event to occur within the great heavenly spirit land. Although the great cold demon sect wasn't comparable to mortal world peak, it wouldn't be far off. To wipe out the great cold demon sect with one's own power, its Taoist level was unimaginable. The Bitter Sea Buddha sect, Lu Xini seemed to have an idea, but he quickly shifted his gaze, with no intention of approaching Xianxia. He observed everyone in the valley. This medicine valley was too peculiar. The inhabitants were either terrifyingly weak or concealed immortals, with an enormous disparity. Suddenly, his gaze was again drawn to one person, and this time his eyes latched on. Following his line of sight, it was Xianxia who was weeding. Due to the vast gulf in their cultivation, Xianxia, who had his back to Lu Xini, did not detect anything unusual, until a voice came from behind him. "What is your name?" Xianxia subconsciously stood up and turned around. He had seen Lu Xini from a distance before and knew that the other party had an important status and was not a simple cultivator. "My name is Xianxia. May I know what matter brings you here, senior?" Xianxia bowed with clasped hands, striking a balance between respect and not coming across as obsequious. Xianxia, Lu Xini mused, recalling having heard this name before. It was mentioned by two supreme sect disciples in conversation, with one claiming that true Lord Erlang, Xianxia, was more formidable than the great sage equaling heaven. The two even quarreled about it in the end. You're tuning into the Immortal Ballad YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.